But I don't read the back.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, May 17th, 2021, and this is a Moscow City Regular Council meeting. And it's exciting for the first time in 14 months to see this room back to somewhat normal, ladies and gentlemen, which is kind of exciting for all of us. And it's been an interesting time. We've got just a few things. Gary, before I'll start with the pledge. Would you, if you all please rise, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Gary, would you mention the little things on our schedule got flip-flopped a little bit?
Yes, a pretty large agenda tonight, and we have the minutes for, under consent agenda, item A should be for May 3rd, not April 19th, just an oversight. And then in the schedule of the agenda, items 8 and 9 need to be reversed. The development agreement comes after the final plat and final PUD for Gateway project.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I have a proclamation on Memorial Day. Memorial Day proclamation. Whereas Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, is a day of remembrance for those who died in our nation's service. And whereas Memorial Day was initially proclaimed on May 5th, 1868 by General John Logan, National Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, in his General Order Number 11. And whereas Memorial Day was first observed May the 10th, 1868, when flowers were placed on the graves of Union and Confederate soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery. And whereas our predecessors fought in wars so future generations would have freedom. And whereas they helped shape the society that we know of today, including our political, economic, military, and social systems, advancements in science and technology, and cultural traditions that enrich our heritage. And whereas it is important on Memorial Day to reflect on whole life memories of military personnel who fought and died for our country, to preserve the rights guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution and to keep our nation strong. And whereas Memorial Day gives us the opportunity to renew our patriotism and to articulate our common desire to live in freedom and seek peace, so that our nation's veterans will not have died in vain. Now, therefore, I, Bill Lambert, the mayor of the city of Moscow, Idaho, do hereby recognize May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day in the city, and I urge all citizens to honor those who have died in the service of our country. And with that, I will go on to the consent agenda, item number 1.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Was that you, Ann, or Maureen? I'll give it to Maureen this time, Gina.
Okay.
Because you guys both did us at the right time, so I'll start to roll with you. Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Right, aye.
Okay, with that, moving on, and as Gary had mentioned earlier, we do have a long meeting, which a lot of agenda items, and we are going to chew through every single one of them. And Gary's going to talk about COVID-19 and update request for direction. And we're going to talk about Resolution 2021-08. So with that, Gary, you have the podium, sir.
Okay, and if I could have Corey come out and set this up.
Corey, come on out.
You lost me when I saw council chambers up there.
Well, we know that we're in the council chambers.
At least he was in the right place.
Very good, perfect. Yep. Thank you. We are sharing a screen tonight. As you know, we are not Zooming or having the elected officials or staff participate by Zoom, except in this case, because of the short notice, our city attorney is in Florida at an FBI function, and she wanted to participate tonight, so she is on Zoom. Okay. As council knows, the second meeting of every month, we've been giving a report on the status of the COVID-19 response by the city of Moscow and the metrics that the council adopted for emergency order, amended Public Health Emergency Order 20-03. And as you see those metrics that come up every month, based on a 7-day moving average, that there must be 4 or less new daily cases of COVID diagnosed in Latah County. And again, based on a 7-day moving average, the number of confirmed COVID-19 hospital admissions district-wide must be within the range of 0 to 5, and last test results must be noted or completed in 1 to 4 days. Okay, we will get to the metrics themselves. However, after those metrics are considered, Governor Brad Little would have to move the state back into stage 4 of the Idaho Rebounds Plan, which he did last week. Then we look to the recommendations of the Public Health Idaho North Central District and review of recommendations of our institutional partners, Latah County, Gritman Medical Center, the U of I, and Moscow School District. And lastly, because we are so close to Pullman and the Whitman County border, that we look at COVID conditions in Whitman County. So as you can see from this graphic, we are seeing a kind of a curve down here as we get to the end of April, the beginning of May. And as council knows, both Washington State University and the University of Idaho have recently let out. University of Idaho had its last 3 graduation ceremonies on Sunday. So this is the status of our initial metrics right now. The week of May 10th, we had hit 4 on the nose for average cases per week newly diagnosed, and as you can see, we well within the metric on the test results and hospitalizations. And test results, because the University of Idaho and Gritman Medical Center have done such a great job that we have never been in the red on test results. May 17th, today we are at 4.14 new cases on a 7-day moving average, so less than 5, right at 4, just barely over 4, and again meet the green metrics in both of the next as well. So state of Idaho, like I said, until last week we were in stage 3, we are now in stage 4, and looking at our institutional partners, I sent an email out to each of them to ask them what their, if they had feedback, depending on what the council wanted to do tonight. And as you know, and I should have probably led with this, the Center for Disease Control put out recommendations within the last 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago, stating that they were lifting any recommendation for wearing masks by fully vaccinated people for outdoor activities. And then last week, the CDC gave out additional recommendations that for fully vaccinated people that you did not need to wear masks in indoor functions either. So that's what prompted us to reach back out to the institutional partners. So speaking to public health, the director, Carol Murley, indicated she's comfortable with the CDC recommendations, would recommend continued social distancing and face coverings in those situations which represent increased risk, such as large gatherings. Moscow School District Superintendent Greg Bailey states he's comfortable with either early termination or continuing through June 9th, which is when council's resolution would expire. He indicates that Moscow School District will continue to require face coverings until the end of the spring semester. Reaching out to the University of Idaho President Scott Green indicated that the UI has no concerns with the council's potential action in terminating the amended public health emergency order, and by order just today has removed face covering requirements on campus at the U of I. Reached out to Gritman Medical Center, and last week on the outdoor masking recommendations of the CDC, and Kara Best, their CEO, indicated that their Chief Medical Officer and Chief Quality Officer, Connie Osborne, indicated they had no issues with the outdoor relaxation, and just this afternoon they reached out to me and stated that like the school district, they are fine taking either path because there is still a requirement of facial coverings in medical facilities, so they're comfortable with that. I have not received a response from Latah County. So, putting this before council tonight, again, the amended public health emergency order extended by resolution of the council in December expires on June 9th. However, the council can either extend or terminate that order. Those are the only things that the council can do without the mayor issuing another emergency order. So, in anticipation of council's two choices, one is either to let it run its course through June 9th, or two, early termination. We have an original resolution that we put in the packet. If council desires to terminate the order, which simultaneously, if the resolution is passed, if council chooses to pass the resolution, it also has a recommendation for keeping social distance and that sort of thing. But it's a recommendation, it is not a mandate. We have an original of that. The city clerk has it. If the council desires to pass that resolution, the mayor can sign it and it would immediately take effect. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Before anybody asks you any questions, I will make a statement right now that there will be no emergency order from this mayor. 20-03, this emergency order. One of the things, Gary, that we've had that we know that's a game changer is vaccines. Everybody in God's green earth that wanted a vaccine in this country could have had one by now, and clearly had plenty of time. Everybody up here is vaccinated and has been for several months. And I'm not going to take center stage for the council, but I highly recommend them that they take a look at 21-0A resolution and strongly pass. And I'll start with Art.
Yeah, I wanted
First.
to just make a couple comments about the resolution. And when this first went in back when, it was flying blind. We'd never done anything like this before, ever. And I think we, maybe sort of could have done a few things differently, but overall we did well. And today I got a little piece of information that I'd like to read in briefly. Received this from Tony Broyles and Seth View, who are the two COVID people at the university. And they've done some analyses, and Latah County's deaths per capita is the third lowest in the state of Idaho among 44 counties. The two least populated counties in the state, Camas with just over 1,000 people, and Clark, population of 900, had 0 fatalities. And we're number 3 in this county, which is 5 times lower than the average of the 25 largest counties in the state. Further, if you look at the counties in the U.S. that have flagship land-grant universities, Latah County is tied for first with Benton County, where Oregon State University is, with the lowest death rate of any of the counties where land-grant universities are located. And again, 5 times fewer deaths than these other counties where land-grant universities exist. So clearly, something has gone right here. We've done it well. And I think between the university and the city, and moreover, the citizens here and the students at the university, we've accomplished a great thing in preventing more deaths than might otherwise have occurred.
Okay, any questions for Gary, by anybody, before we?
I just have one little question. So
Brandy.
on that one slide, I mean, really, is that supposed to show 3 different points in time when decision making? But it doesn't include what you just reported to us right now, that some of those partners, I think what I heard from you is none of them are opposed.
Exactly. I'm sorry, that slide,
All right.
Jen was updating it, and apparently it didn't get saved to this presentation.
Ladies-
Those should be all green.
Ladies,
sorry.
Just a minor thing,
ladies
but-
and gentlemen, just ignore that's got no dates or any validity to it, I guess, is what
Yeah.
we're saying here, Gary. So get that off the screen and get something else up there that looks good.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. So thank you, Brad. Okay, for discussion from counselors as we're going along. Gina, did you have something on?
I do. I think we had a perfect storm of badness. I think we had a really ugly national scene and some, according to a really wise friend of mine, a selective respect phenomena happening at the same time that we've had the scariest pandemic, well, the only pandemic I've ever seen. And I don't want to look backwards, but I hope that when we can finally take these off and start smiling at each other again and seeing our faces and remembering what's so awesome about our community, that we also can maybe 2 or 3 months down the road carry these lessons forward with the fact that we are better than the negativity that's been occurring, and that we are an awesome little town, and we love each other, and we did what we needed to do to get to where we are now, and we are on the cusp of being able to not have to wear these things all the time anymore. So take a moment, pat yourselves on the back, and realize that it took all of us to do this.
Brandy?
So I just want to say that I feel we've been very consistent from the start, making our decisions based on the recommendations of science, which, as we know, as they learn more, their recommendations change. That was one of the things that threw everybody off early on, but as there's more knowledge, recommendations change. In my mind, it being consistent with that, now the latest science from the CDC is recommending if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear masks indoors. So for me, it's just a sake of consistency. When they recommended that we do, I felt that's what we need to do for our city to protect ourselves. And now that that is no longer recommended for fully vaccinated people, it seems to be a conflict to me to require it of everyone when it is no longer recommended for fully vaccinated people.
Yeah, thank you, Brady. I'll go to Sandra.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've as Moscow, the collective whole, have done a pretty good job of this. I would like two cautionary takes on this. I'm absolutely in favor of moving with science. I've been very encouraged to see these things too, because like Brandy said, that's been our goal, is to follow those guidelines. I feel that we are. There's still a lot of people that haven't been vaccinated. I hope they'll take advantage of the opportunities. There's so many opportunities out there to get vaccinated. The more people that are vaccinated, the safer and healthier our communities will be. And I'd also like to throw out there to please remember our businesses. Some of those folks were not at the top end of getting vaccinated. Some of our hardest workers are those folks serving us coffee or serving us burritos or pizza or hamburgers, and they're at that low end. They're younger folks and they're essential workers, but they didn't get the essential treatment. So some of them have not reached that 14-day period, even though they're vaccinated. So if some of our businesses are still asking for a mask, please respect that, because their workers are working really hard and they need to be protected. So I think we're going to see people still wanting to be masked up, and that's great. I think it's nice to have options, and I'm looking forward to what lies ahead, and I hope we have a safe and healthy summer, and I hope the science continues to hold up.
Ann?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have a lot to add. I'm excited to be at a pivot point, and I'm excited just as a member of the community in this role and just as a volunteer to help anyone who's vaccine skeptical. I feel like we're seeing these results because of the vaccine rate that we have, but the rate's not that high, in my opinion. And so I'm eager to help connect people with the resources that might help them make that decision. I know I have some of those people in my life, and I'm eager to have that conversation with them and just see what else we can do to help make it so that those numbers continue getting lower every week, whether or not we're tracking them for mask mandates.
Maureen?
I am thrilled that the evidence that's come out now in terms of vaccines is very positive, and that we can now move into a new direction. I do think that I hope that it will help mend some of the fences. I was disappointed to read that there are still fights in airports where people are fighting over mask and no mask, and I'm hoping that as we move back into more normal life, that we in fact can all appreciate that and know that now people have a right to wear a mask and they have a right not to wear a mask. And no one's going to, at least that I'm never going to ask somebody if they were vaccinated or not vaccinated. The answer is if it's a matter of choice now in terms of what people do. And I hope we all stay healthy. And I'm glad the science is moving along to help us move forward right now.
Art?
Yeah, with that, I would like to make a motion that terminates Resolution 2020-03 and replace it with Resolution 2021-08.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Art and a second by Gina to do away with 2020-17, replace it with 2021-08, which would end the emergency health order 20-03. Any discussion before I call for a roll on this? I will start with you, Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Randy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
You got to sign it first, Bill.
bring it over so I can sign it. I'm
But
sweating
anyway.
like a pig under this mask. Sorry, everybody.
I take a verbal signing.
My face feels funny.
Okay, there you go. Thank you very much. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Maureen had said something. There's going to be folks that's going to be wearing masks. There's going to be folks not wearing masks. There's going to be businesses that will have employees wearing masks. There's going to be businesses that may even want their people that come in and visit them to wear a mask. Just be gracious. Look, if this is Moscow, Idaho, we're a friendly town. We're a good community. By God, let's get back on the boat and move forward, get back to normal. I'm excited about this. Let's not criticize anybody about what they decide or what they do or not do. All of us up here have been vaccinated for several months. I encourage people to do that. But no, I'm never going to ask if you are, because it's really none of my business. I'll leave it with that, and with that, we're going to move on to item number 3, staff recognition report. Gary?
Yes, sir. I am proud to state that today we had promotions, 3 of them in the police department. The first promotion, and these were brought about by the retirement of Captain Will Krasselt, who spent 30 years in the service of the city. And taking his place as captain of the Moscow Police Department is Captain Anthony Dollinger.
Come on in, Anthony.
He's outside.
Yeah, we'll get him in here.
Awesome. Yay!
He was promoted just today, and then Shane Gunderson was promoted from corporal to sergeant, and Brett Payne was promoted from patrolman to corporal. So
Either one of those
congratulations.
officers here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Captain. Okay, mayor's appointments. I have none this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll go right into item number 5, which is public comment and response period. We run for 15 minutes. And as I always have said, something that is on tonight's agenda will not be, we cannot have public comment on right now. There'll be plenty of time to do that during public hearings because we have several of them in front of us. Also, anything in front of planning and zoning at the current time and/or the Board of Adjustment cannot be spoke about. But with that, if somebody's got something they want to come up and say, I'll give you 3 minutes. Give us your name, and away we go. Come on up, Dan. I know you. Even though I know who you are, sir, you got to identify yourself.
Yeah, my name's Dan Schoenberg. I'm a co-owner of Plouffe Properties here in Moscow, and I live just outside of town on 3306 Cameron Road. I want to thank the council members, Mayor, on the last vote. I appreciate that. I sent hopefully it wasn't too lengthy of an email in, and you had an opportunity to read that. A few years ago, we had a mother and a 12-year-old child coming to Moscow from New Jersey. And they came in on a Saturday, and it was the summertime, so farmers market was active. We had all these activities, and we showed them an apartment, and they wanted to go to lunch and think about it. And when they came back from lunch, she said, "We just had the most weird experience in the world. People were telling us hello on the sidewalk, and somebody bought my daughter dessert, and that would never happen in New Jersey. We want to live here." I think, unfortunately, this past 14 months has been really hard on us as a community. And although we didn't see some of the ills that we saw on the west side with riots and burning and defaming of our police, we still had our own problems here. And that term selective respect, I think, rings pretty true. You know, I never thought I'd see a time in our world where alcohol, liquor stores, and marijuana stores would be essential and houses of worship are not. And I get the times and I get the concerns, but that is such a poor message for some of our youth. And I think that's the road that we have to make up. You know, I didn't think we'd ever see the time in our community where people would feel the need to create a website listing businesses that are associated to a specific church in town and say, don't patronize them. I never thought I'd see that. Moscow's better than that, and we can feel good about what we've got, where we are and what we've done, but I think we need to do a lot more in terms of healing that rift in the community. And it's going to take some civil discourse. It's going to take some conversation. It's going to take some willingness to listen to opposing sides. And sometimes we're not going to agree. But when I moved back here in 1978, it was that way. We didn't always agree on everything, but we made great progress in doing things in our community. I was involved in the establishment of the farmers market, Rendezvous in the Park, the Arts Commission with the Arts Choir, at the university with many, many activities that were beneficial for our community. And I think we need to get back to looking out for one another and do it in a respectful way and not be selective in our respect and only respect someone if we have the same opinion. And I've eclipsed my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dan. You got 3 minutes and 1 second. One thing I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, with the pandemic and things, this entire country was crazy. It doesn't matter whether it's a city of Moscow or state of Idaho or other states, or our whole country was kind of a mess because we hadn't gone through anything like this for 102 years. And Dan, you're absolutely right. Look, at the enemy was the pandemic and the virus, not people. People are people, and yes, there's times we disagree, but now is the time to go ahead and move forward. And I tell you what, that's why we have 6 counselors up here too. We don't always agree on the direction on things, and if you stick around long enough tonight, you'll probably see some of that, because that's how it should be. But it's done in an orderly fashion and a correct fashion. So, that anybody?
Can I make a comment too?
Yes.
In response to Dan, similar to what you said when listening to you, COVID has been hard on every community. And I think at this stage, when we hear that report that was passed along through Art about how well we've done, I really hope that despite any differences in anything, we can all say it was hard, but it was worth it. Look at where we are. And we did that together, whether we were excited about it, whether we were against it. We've done well, and I think that in itself can unite us, because we had some capacity of people willing to actually, throughout that, we were teaming together and helping each other and supporting each other as that great community is that Moscow always has been, despite the differences and despite feeling angry or upset. We did it. So, and
oh, by the way, one thing I didn't do was thank this council, because when I came out with that emergency order, they all stood behind me 100%, which was an amazing thing. I'm very, very thankful they did. And I truly believe that we made the right decision and the best decision for our community. And with that being said, if anybody in here thinks that I didn't have some sleepless nights, I did, in fact. And none of us were unscathed by some of the nasty emails and different things. And it was people venting for one reason or another. And you've got to be thick-skinned like an alligator or an elephant sometimes and get through this and move on and look at, we're moving forward in our community. We need to move forward in our community. That's exactly what we're going to do. Do I have others that would like to come up and speak before I move on to another agenda? Come on. Okay.
Right here in the front row.
Yeah, there's,
Oh, I'm sorry, please. Oh, come on, we got 2 of you. Come on up, Danny, and introduce yourself.
fine.
And then we'll come to you, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't see you have your hand up.
Name is Danny Bradley, 421 East 6th Street, Moscow, lived here 13 years. Thank you for your decision tonight. I just wanted to say that, we did do a lot of efforts. We did put forward a good foot forward into our best understanding, but the reason why Latah County has done so well is not ultimately because we did anything. It was the Lord of heaven that was merciful to us. That's at the end of the day, he can use our efforts and that's great, but God was merciful to our county. Then that's the bottom line. Just want to make that clear for everybody.
Thank you. Danny, if you'd like to come up, ma'am.
My name is Carol Hughes, and I live at 2053 Damon Street, or I will when the renovation is fully completed. However, it started last November and it continues. I wanted to comment about the COVID situation. My friends and I, and they gave me leave to speak for them, applaud the mayor and the council. We think you did a wonderful job. We also think that it is somewhat naive to think that those people who refused to wear masks, who insisted on going within 6 feet of people who were wearing them and so forth, and who boldly said, we are not being vaccinated and we are not going to do what is recommended, that is not easily forgotten. Now, I must say that I tried really hard. I went to the comprehensive plan, and I read all the wonderful words about the vision of Moscow. And I must say that after having lived here for more than 5 decades, I am really alarmed now. I have never loved a place more. I have been part of the community, I think, by contributing in every way possible. But I am truly concerned about what I see now. In the words of the comprehensive plan, Moscow has a unique sense of place, ellipses. It creates a quality of place like no other, and I think that that is true. However, I think that for years, we have been concerned with one another. When my son was leaving Moscow, I said, why are you happy to be leaving Moscow? He said, who wouldn't be happy to be leaving Moscow when everybody knows what you're doing, and if you get in trouble, they're going to report it to your mother even before the police? Well, I don't think that's really true, but we certainly did have a community that worked together, and even if we didn't agree, we loved what was happening in many instances. And recently I was told that I better get used to change because change is coming and I can do nothing about it. Well, I am trying to do something about it, and I think that change, of course, is coming. And many of my friends and I were open to the pool, to the Egan Center, to all of the play fields along the Mountain View Road area. In 9/10 of a mile, we have a remarkable recreation area, and we were all in favor of everything. But we are not in favor of being, as many of them say, left out of the procedure.
Carol,
It's my 3 minutes.
Yep, I'm going to cut you off. Thank you very much. Because
Thank
we're going to
you.
hear a lot of public testimony. I'm going to be consistent tonight.
I'm sorry, I appreciate being told it's time, but I didn't hear the last word you said.
I said, I'm being consistent with everybody, Carol. Thank you. Come on up, sir. Walton,
I'm Walter Hessford. I live at 1117 East 6th Street in Moscow, which is an endangered neighborhood because I don't think the Planning and Zoning Committee has considered in approving new developments older neighborhoods. And I just plead for the people in planning and zoning and you folks that are approving new developments such as the one the Harvest Homes development.
Walt, we can't speak about that
Oh.
because we're having a public hearing on that. You'll have a time to speak about it then if you wish.
Okay. Well, oh, all right. Well,
Because the public hearing's coming forth, they're quasi-judicial type things, and there will be a public comment period, so you'll have a chance to speak.
all right.
then.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you that well, but I agree. Thank you. Whatever.
Come on up, miss, please.
Are the water rights part of the quasi-judicial? Are we allowed to speak of that now?
Anything to do with any kind of development will have to be talked about during that development phase in the public hearing. So we won't be taking any kind of testimony like that right now. But you'll have a chance as well in the public hearing, miss.
So that has to come later.
Yep. Yes,
Ma'am, you need to identify yourself as well, if you would.
Jean Elliott,
Okay.
rural Latah County.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop the public comment period because we've hit our time limit on it. But what I will do is I will go into item number 6, which is a public hearing on Harvest Hills PUD development and replot. And we have Mike Array with us this evening to do this presentation. Evening, Mike. How are you tonight?
Doing well, Your Honor. Counsel.
I didn't know you had a mustache, Ray, Mike.
Yeah, I've been hiding for a year.
I'm kidding.
The video. What?
It only took a year. I figured that'd be the biggest talking point tonight.
You're right.
No, it's not either. Look at this.
Oh, that's funny.
Thank you again, Your Honor, Counsel. So before you tonight, we have the Harvest Hills PUD and replat of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Harvest Hills First Edition. And the proposal is a 2.16 acre parcel. The applicant, Phil Rangans, is requesting a proposed PUD and replat to include 10 twin home parcels, which range from a little over 2,600 to 6,600 square feet in size, 4 townhouse parcels, and those are ranging from 2,592 square feet to 3,852 square feet in size, and then 1 neighborhood business parcel of a little under 18,000 square feet in size. And part of this proposal is a private street which accesses these proposed lots. So this is to familiarize yourself with the subject property highlighted in red at the center of your screen. You can see 3rd Street to the south, running east-west, Mountain View Road here running north-south, Paradise Creek to the northwest of this property. And this is an older photo from 2018, so a lot of the twin homes which are currently constructed on 3rd Street in the First Edition have already been constructed. There's a few remaining that are currently under construction. 3rd Street currently terminates at this point right here. So I'm going to give kind of an abbreviated background of this subject property and the property directly to the east. We'll go into a little bit more detail in the second item before you tonight with Harvest Hills Second Edition. So back in 2013, there was a preliminary plat for Harvest Hills Edition, included the entire property, 24.7 acres. It was similar to a previous plat on this property, which happened in 2005, which was referred to as Windfall Hills. And once again, I'll go into a little bit more detail at the next presentation. But that proposal was 75 lots ranging in size from a little over 7,000 square feet to 19,496 square feet in size. There was a point in time after receiving approval that the applicant determined that the project was not financially feasible, never advanced to the final plat stage, and this was the Harvest Hills proposal from 2013. Essentially the same roadway alignment as was approved in the First Edition. And then 2015, Harvest Hills First Edition came back. It was only 7.45 acres of that entire 24.7 acres. It also included a rezone proposal. It was previously R2, and a comprehensive plan land use designation amendment, as well as a preliminary plat that coincided with this proposal, which included 22 twin home lots and 1 neighborhood business lot. February of 2016, the council approved the rezone and comp plan amendment, and then April 18th, the council ended up approving the preliminary subdivision plat for the Harvest Hills First Edition, and that included 3 conditions. The primary condition was the inclusion of 9 on-street parking spaces on the north side of 3rd Street, and so that's what you see today within Harvest Hills First Edition. And so that's what the construction drawings and plat look like. You can see those 9 off-street park or on-street parking spaces on the north side of 3rd there on the screen. So this brings us to the proposal before you tonight. This is a topography map, and all those lines represent 1 foot elevation change. You can see a stormwater detention pond here to the northeast, primarily surrounded by single-family residences on the west side of Mountain View, north side and Damon area, as well as the Rolling Hills additions to the south. This is a floodplain map of the area of Paradise Creek. You can see there's city park property that was previously dedicated as linear pathways here on the east side of Mountain View Road. This is also included within the city park property. It also provides access to the stormwater detention pond. As you can see, this property is entirely outside of the 100-year floodplain, which is represented by the red line on your screen. The dashed area would be the floodway. Taking a look at the comp plan designation, currently designated as suburban commercial. Taking a look at what that says, it's really intended to provide local neighborhood commercial services in a manner that's compatible with the residential neighborhood environment. And then it points to appropriate designations in areas that are closer to high-density residential development, intersections with collector arterial streets near residential development. Mountain View Road is currently designated as a minor arterial, and 3rd Street as a collector. And then developments within these designated areas should include additional building scale and design standards, and then it points to the neighborhood business zone as being the most appropriate for that designation. So this is intended, they're faint lines, but you can see the green represents collector status. So we have 3rd Street proposed to extend further to the east, and then Mountain View Road, the blue represents minor arterial, and then the short segment of 3rd Street to the creek is also designated as a minor arterial as well. Taking a look at the current zoning designation of the area, subject property is neighborhood business. The surrounding properties within the Harvest Hills First Edition are R3, which is medium density residential. That's the yellow color. And then completely surrounded by the R2 designation. Beyond that, that's moderate density residential. Taking a look at the neighborhood business zone and the zoning code, appropriate applied in the following circumstances: where local commercial facilities will serve the everyday needs of a limited neighborhood area, where those activity levels associated with small-scale office development can be accommodated or tolerated by surrounding land uses and existing public services, and then where a neighborhood core is identified, which is easily accessible by pedestrian or vehicular circulation, and then where such commercial development will result in minimal interference with the residential uses in the vicinity of that zoning district. And then really permits a wide variety of uses, so ranging from residential uses as long as they're behind or above commercial uses on the property. We have urban agricultural uses, fitness centers, veterinary services, some professional office, restaurants, coffee espresso stands, childcare centers, neighborhood centers, healthcare, ambulatory services, museum art galleries, churches, retail personal services, and off-street parking areas, as well as bed and breakfast. So that brings us to the replat of this property. So 10 twin-owned parcels ranging from the 2,600 to 6,600 square feet in size, the 4 townhouse parcels, and then the 1 neighborhood business parcel of 17,905 square feet, access via the private street. And this is the preliminary subdivision plat that was submitted. You can see the 3rd Street there to the south, and then this would be the private street, which loops around. There are a little bit more detail in the PUD site plan, but there's 9 on-street parking spaces around that loop. There is a center open space island here in the middle. These would be the twin home lots that circle around, and they transition into the townhouse lots here. And this would be that 17,905 square foot neighborhood business lot. So the PUD also include 10 twin home dwellings, 4 townhouses, the neighborhood business parcel. Applicants proposing that any use or combination of uses permitted within the existing neighborhood business zone be permitted on that vacant property. And then the private circular street, center open space island with those 9 angled parking spaces, and there's a little bit more detail. You can see building footprints So these represent the twin homes, share a common wall. Townhouses also share the common wall, but there's 3 or more, which makes it a townhouse. And then you can see those 9 on-street angled parking spaces that are adjacent to the private street. These are the elevations. So these are almost identical to the current twin homes that are being constructed in Harvest Hills First Edition. And so these are the elevations that were submitted for the twin homes. That's the rear, sides. And then this is the floor plan. So you can see a single car garage, quite a bit bigger in the single car that you typically see. Driveway coming in. You have the living room, dining room area here, kitchen, as well as 1 water closet, and then stairs going up to the second level. Second level has 4 bedrooms, including a master bedroom, as well as 2 bathrooms. And then these are the sample elevations for the townhouses. So similar design to the twin homes that are being proposed as well. There's front and rear elevations. And this is the floor plan, similar to the twin home. So you have the living, dining, and kitchen area, as well as 1 bathroom on the first floor, garage for a single car. And then actually on the right of your screen there includes the second floor. So 4 bedrooms, 1 master, 2 bathrooms on the second level. This is just our private street detail, just showing what the street would look like. You do have a sidewalk on one side of the street in the proposal, but essentially 20 foot and width for that private street. So there are a few deviations the applicant's proposing, which are allowed within the PUD process. For the twin homes, the exterior side yard setback is generally 8 feet within most zones. Just because of the pie-shaped nature of a lot of these lots looping around the private street, the applicant's requesting a slight reduction in those setbacks down to 7 feet. Front setbacks really range from 8 to 25 feet in the proposal. The typical front setbacks for the neighborhood business zone are actually 20 feet, assuming that there's typically commercial uses and you want those set back a little bit. Usually residential zones are quite a bit closer to the street, 10, 15 feet, but neighborhood business happens to be 20. And these are primarily, the majority of the lots actually meet the 20-foot requirement. It's just the lots on the east side as you enter the private street are a little tight, and that's the reason for the request for the reduction there. Garage setbacks, they're all 20 feet, so they meet that requirement. Rear yard setbacks meet the requirement of 20 feet as well. And then third street side setback would typically be 10 feet with neighborhood business. The applicant's proposing 5 feet, and it's essentially for what we previously discussed with the tightness of the pie-shaped lots as you enter the private street there on the east. And then townhouses, front and rear setbacks all meet the 20-foot requirement. Exterior side, the lot to the north, which is lot 5, meets the 8-foot exterior side yard setback. But the lot to the south adjacent to the commercial lot is proposed to be 3 feet to that property line instead of 8, and that's lot 2. So within a neighborhood business zone, generally you have a 10-foot wide type A landscape buffer that's typically required anytime you have the zone where it's neighborhood business adjacent to a residentially zoned property. In this case, we have R2 and R3 adjacent to this property. And so technically it would be required the entire perimeter of this lot. Since the proposed use in the twin home and townhouses are residential and similar to the surrounding land uses, we feel that the type A buffer should not be required except for the commercial lot. So really the intention is to buffer those residential uses with the commercial uses, and really would only be achieved commercial to residential on the one lot. So we would allow or request a deviation there. And then looking at utilities, so water service currently exists in 3rd Street, Mountain View, and it'll be looped around the private street. Our 2012 comprehensive water system plan indicates the existing system has adequate potable and fire flows. And then the sanitary sewer, same deal. The main will be constructed within the private street, and then the 2011 comprehensive sewer system plan indicates this existing system's adequate to serve the development. Storm sewer would be conveyed through mains in the private street to the detention ponds already constructed in the first addition. Of course, anywhere in the city, stormwater is required to be detained at the pre-development rate before being discharged into Paradise Creek. Parkland Dedication has previously been dedicated. In Harvest Hills first edition, there was the 3,333 square foot pathway directly to the west of this property, as well as a 22,491 square foot property directly to the west as well. And those were those two pieces there. Planning and Zoning Commission did conduct a public hearing for this matter, and it occurred earlier this year on April 28th. And they recommended approval of the proposed PUD with no conditions and recommended approval of the preliminary plat with 2 conditions. Staff recommends that the council conduct the public hearing and upon consideration of testimony presented, approve the proposed PUD with no conditions, and approve the preliminary plat with the following 2 conditions. And both are from engineering. Pertaining to stormwater runoff, control facility design shall be evaluated to verify that there will be no zero net increase in the rate of stormwater runoff from the development as a result of the design changes. And then there's a stormwater swale that happens to be running to the west of this property on city park property. And the applicant will just need to relocate that so it will not be on the park property, which is achievable. And then, of course, in accordance with the council's decision, either adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reason statement of relevant criteria and standards document or direct staff to prepare one for future council meeting. And certainly try to answer any questions that you might have.
I have one for you, Mike. Those 9 parking spots, those slanted parking spots that are right across from the townhouses, who are those parking positions, parking spaces for? Anybody and everybody, or are they for the townhouse? On that one slide you showed.
It's my understanding it's really just for the residential component, so twin homes and townhouses. So it'd be shared equally amongst all the lots, more as visitor parking. Just because there's an issue with 3rd Street being a collector, there's no on-street parking except for the 9 on-street parking spaces that were created within the bulb out. And so certainly the applicant can clarify, but it's my understanding that they're to be shared for visitors and guests of the development.
I'll be anxious to hear from them. Questions from Mike before, Art?
Yeah, relative to the landscape buffer, that seems to be a condition. Would that be a condition that goes with the plat or with the PUD?
That would just be part of the PUD.
Okay. Gina, you have a question?
I have a question about the landscape buffer. What's a type A?
It's every 100 feet, you have a certain number of plantings, so it'd be 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 6 shrubs.
Right on. Okay, thank you.
Brandy.
I have a couple of questions. With these recommendations, the engineering recommendations, are they still up there? Yeah. So what happens if it's determined that there is an increase in the rate of stormwater runoff? What does that mean? This first condition that says it will verify that there's 0 net increase. What if it doesn't verify that?
They may just need to increase some of the facilities, so like the stormwater detention pond, increase the depth of that, things like that.
Okay. And then do you have any concern about that section with just the 5 feet setback along 3rd, being that close to the road?
It's really creating the proximity over there just because of the bump out for the 9 off-street parking spaces. So, I mean, that's really what's creating that issue over there, as well as just the tightness of the lots. And so I don't necessarily have a concern. Future owners of those property may not like that it is 5 feet away from a sidewalk, but they certainly knew that when they purchased the property, if this is approved. So I certainly don't have any issue with it.
I have another one too.
Okay.
So, let's see. Related to the buffer, so the whole thing will remain zoned neighborhood business. It's just that those parts that are going to have the twin homes will not require the buffer since they're residential? Is
Correct.
that how I understand
Well, the entire property will still remain neighborhood business. So
Right.
even the twin homes and the townhouses, those will all still be neighborhood business, but they'll be under a PUD. So it's almost a unique zone.
So you'll only require the buffering along the boundary with that parcel that is to
not have the homes on it.
Right.
Yeah, it would just be really on the west here, as well as the south. So it would wrap the property there.
Would there be one on the north boundary with that plot and the first home that it's adjacent to?
Generally, that's not required just because they're both the same zone. So they're both neighborhood business. That's not changing. This is just neighborhood business to R2 or R3.
I have one other, maybe two other questions for you before we go to the public hearing. Thank you. So, I saw in one of the minutes, it was a huge packet, so that quite a long time ago, when it first went to planning and zoning, the original rezone and preliminary plat, they recommended denial, but the city council approved it. Do you remember what that was about, what their concerns were at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was primarily the rezone and concerned with, I think there's quite a bit of resident input, just concern with some type of neighborhood business parcel and activity in that area. And I believe that was the primary concern from Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as potentially not fitting in with the comprehensive plan.
Okay. And at some point, but maybe it's later, I would like to ask just for a little history about, we've heard concerns about flooding. So I guess that could come later, Mayor? I'm not sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, let's ask if there's any other councilors before, because we'll hear from the applicant and people, and then we can, once we close with that, we can get Mike back up here and talk about those things, okay? We all good on that? Okay, I'll open the public hearing at 7:56, and we'll hear from the applicant, either Phil Reagans or his representative. And please tell us who your name is, Scott, even though I know you.
Absolutely. Scott Becker with Hodge & Associates, 405 South Washington. And Mike did an excellent job of the presentation, but I can answer some of the questions, especially that Brandy had about the stormwater. So we have analyzed, since planning and zoning, we have analyzed the stormwater detention pond. It's sufficient for the entire development. The swale, however, it's not necessary for stormwater detention, but we showed it for a couple reasons. One, in the future, there is an area that could be developed for a business, and we thought maybe if a parking lot, we could run it off into that swale for additional treatment, not necessarily detention. The other reason is with the path right there, that's not shown very well, but there's a path along there. Snow removal could be into that swale and get it out of the way without damaging the path or other houses. So I don't know if there were some additional questions, but that's really, I just wanted to touch base and let you know that we have looked at the stormwater. So.
Okay.
So does that mean that you found a different location for the swale?
We don't need the swale.
Oh, okay.
It's an addition in itself. So the swale's not necessary for stormwater. We've compensated for that in the larger pond.
So if I understand you correctly, that just means that you now have additional protection
Yeah,
from
additional
flooding.
protections for multiple reasons, not necessarily detention, but it does add a level of treatment to the stormwater. That any stormwater that may be run off that parking lot, we could run it right into the swale. It is the parkland property, but it's also adjacent to the path, so it's not, they're not going to be building a swing set or anything right there. So just something to consider. We have no problem taking it off the plan. It's not necessary. It's not detrimental to the development to remove the swale. It's just kind of an amenity for the city if you wanted us to leave the swale in there and construct it.
Okay, well, Scott, unless you have anything else to add to it, we will hear from from people,
Yeah.
but we will bring you up.
Phil is here if you have other questions for him.
We'll get a chance to answer some of those at the end of the hearing here,
Absolutely.
okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, with that, I would be in favor of hearing from folks that are in favor of this.
Could we ask some other questions?
Well, there's going to be opportunity for general discussion on this, but we'll start with folks that are in favor of this, and then we'll go from there with general testimony or against. So, sir, your name.
I'm Phil Ryan-Gans, the applicant.
Okay, Phil, thank you.
I had Scott field the engineering-related questions, but I am happy to field any questions that have to do with any changes from standard procedure, particularly like with the setbacks, for instance. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot of pie-shaped lots, and to fit the houses on there, there's pinch points that we hit, so that in order to change the setback from 8 feet back to 7, that foot that we gain allows us to keep the house more where we want it on the lot. Now, if we took that foot out, it would make a particularly narrow house. So we're trying to balance all the different design parameters with a particularly difficult lot to design. And so there's some setback requests that we have, and I'm happy to field any questions related to those, but they all came about as a result of trying to place the footprint on each individual lot, as well as trying to come up with the best design for the home that we could for each lot.
Okay, well, do you have a question you want to ask?
I do have a question. Do you have, something reassuring to tell us about the potential for flooding as relates to the construction, or how you're planning, how things are going to go with that? We've heard from people that it was an issue with the prior construction, and their concerns that there will be more of that, and sliding and erosion and runoff. And I'm not sure, maybe that's a question again for Scott, but if you had anything to say about that, I would love to hear it.
Well, I have a few comments. It is a sloped property, and when you've got, say, 6 or 8 inches of snow on frozen ground and it rains on it, there's not a lot that can be done. Under any condition, there's going to be some measure of runoff. And so whether it were in farm ground or whether it were developed, there's going to be some measure of runoff. And by developing the parcel, there should be an improvement in all those things, because the stormwater system that runs down the street should intercept that water and then detain it in the pond. And then, although it's not part of this discussion for the plat that's coming after this, which is probably what you're referencing in some ways, the runoff there, we've proposed essentially a berm along the property line, so that it would divert the water that goes north, which is the natural contour of the property, so that would also be diverted into that detention pond.
And let's not get into the discussion on what's coming up on the second public hearing.
I don't think there's on this particular parcel, I don't believe there's a stormwater issue in that respect. But that's what the pond is there for, is to detain that.
Okay,
I didn't know if you had any questions concerning
I think
the
what we'll do
setbacks.
is we very well could bring you back up here, Mr. Rangans, and as well as Mr. Becker. But we're going to hear from other folks first, and then somebody's going to get a chance, either you or Scott, to come back up and talk. So with that being said, is there anybody that would like to testify in favor of this? And I will come on up, give us your name, and I will give you 3 minutes, sir.
Dan Schoenberg with Palouse Properties here in Moscow, 115 South Washington. And I think this is applicable to the conversations tonight in terms of development in total. And I think it would be important for the council members to understand
Can you try speaking a little louder? I think some people are having a hard time hearing you.
Sure.
So if you could speak closer to the mic and a little louder, that would be helpful to everybody. Thank you.
I'll try to project it a little bit more.
In that direction.
We got it?
Yeah.
Just in terms of the dynamics of housing in the Moscow market right now, and what we're seeing, not only from the sales side, but also from the rental side, and the cascading impacts that has on our residents here in the community. We have a number of properties which are traditionally student housing. They're close to the university. They're walking distance to the university. They tend to have a pretty active nightlife in them. The police department visit them often. And over the last year, we've seen some changes in that. We've seen families moving into apartment buildings, anticipating the time that they can purchase or build something in our community. And so they're moving into this multifamily housing. The housing that I have available that would tend to be for professionals and families and graduate students, law students, are being taken up. And it cascades down because those that don't have a lot of resources to them, some of the poorest of our community, end up getting pushed out. I have a building downtown that has 8 units in it. 2 years ago, it was, I'll just call it, it was our retirement home. I had a number of single, widowed ladies living right downtown Moscow, access to health care, access to what all they need. And things have changed over time. Some of them have had to go get care elsewhere. Some of them have been forced out to move just because of demand in the downtown area. 4 of my widows have now moved to Troy. They're in one of my buildings in Troy. So they've moved away from their health care. They've moved away from the community that they knew for years and years and years. And this is just a cascading effect just because of the number of available housing units in our community for the various demographics that live in our community. Not a single one, but for the various demographics we have in our community. I've got 3-bedroom units with mom, dad, and 6 kids, waiting for a lot to purchase so that they can have a little room to breathe. And I don't see that trend going away for the next 3 years.
Dan, I'm going
to
cut you off. I give you 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Because of the question.
I should have timed myself on this one.
Well, Maureen had asked you to speak louder, and so I want to give you a few more seconds.
So just to understand the general dynamics of what's taking place in overall housing in the community, and that's why I'm in support of some of these developments.
Others in favor that would like to speak?
Rusty Opes, 931 Herald Street. I'm a developer, so you can't really trust when I'm my being in favor of this at all. But I will say there's different kinds of developments, and this is a really quality set of homes. I live near it, and it's been exciting to see it go up because I appreciate the attention to detail, the quality of the craftsmanship, the quality of the materials, and I look forward to seeing what else Phil has to do.
Thank you, Rusty. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Okay, now I will take testimony for those in opposition or general comments.
Hello, I'm Vince Hadley. Let's get close here. 1859 Rolling Hills Drive. I attended one of the earlier meetings about this development. I had a question. There was a proposal about having some of these townhouses actually be more transient type housing, like apartments or something like that. Someone was proposed at the time. I think it was something they were fielding with us a little bit in the room, the developer, et cetera. And I have a question about why it's still zoned all commercial if those are truly not going to be repurposed later for mixed kind of purposes, those buildings, whatever. So I don't know what's changed between then and now, but that's my question is why do we not be more selective and deliberate in determining what is going to be a business lot, like that one lot in the corner versus all of it? So that's my question to the council. Why do we have it all as being a commercial new to business development when it's actually doesn't look like it's being purposed as that? I'm wondering if it's going to be so it can later transform to something else.
We will let the applicant, when we bring him back up here to speak about that, sir.
So that's my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I never thought of it.
Sure. Yep.
Come on up.
Yep. Please come on up, Walter, and identify yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Walter Hessford at 1117 East 6th, and it does look like a nice development. There is something misleading in the map we were shown, however. It looks on that map as if 3rd Street is a through street. In fact, it is not a through street, which means that those of us on 6th and also those on D Street, which includes the middle school, will get increased traffic. So I was wondering if the developers had considered the effect of this development on existing developments. Maybe that's not their job, but maybe it should be the city council's job. Because, as I said before, it seems to me that the city, looking at the big picture, as it approves new developments, needs to consider the effect of these new developments on the city as a whole, on older neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come up, ma'am.
My name's Patricia Taylor. I live at 437 Harvest Drive in Rolling Hills, one block up to the left, and so I overlook the current building. And I think basically they're doing a really nice job, but I have one concern about this program, and that's the business. They say they plan to put in a store, a grocery store, a convenience store, that type of thing, and I think I'm opposed to that because this is one of the busiest intersections and will become even busier in the city of Moscow. I don't know how many of you use Mountain View Drive generally, but it's a busy street. And not only that, we have foot traffic of 1st to 8th graders going up and down Mountain View to the schools that are farther to the north, the school for the middle students and Mountain View School, or can't remember the name of it.
Moscow Charter.
Moscow Charter.
Moscow Charter. Well, yes, and I'm thinking of the public grade school.
McDonald.
Thank you.
Yep.
This convenience store on the corner of 3rd Street and Mountain View seems to me not to be a good situation. I oppose the plan for several reasons. Noise and congestion are obvious, but I see potential problems because of the large amount of foot traffic on Mountain View. I don't know how many of you drive Mountain View, but if you are there at the beginning of school and at the end of school, and when the athletes are all out running up and down Mountain View and 3rd Street, you know there's a lot of traffic. And this is the route that there is no other route besides Mountain View to get to their schools. I'm concerned about the problematic offerings in a store that is in this location. Such things that would be appealing to young kids and older ones as well. I'm assuming, most convenience stores sell alcoholic drinks and cigarettes and other products that may cause problems with so many students in the area.
Miss Taylor, I'm going to cut you off because you've had your 3 minutes, please.
It's just too close to the street, and it's too busy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
David Hall, Wallen Road, Moscow. Excuse me. Mike Ray presented, I guess it's a staff report, or numbers from that for the Harvest One, with an estimate of 1.31 million gallons of water pumped per year. Moscow's trying to reduce water use from our declining aquifers and spending money for coming up with alternative water supplies. Yet the city allows unfettered development and the associated increase in water use. This makes no sense. The city needs a plan which should include a water use budget. That's all I have for this one. Thank you.
Can you define water use budget for me, please?
It's a plan of how to decide how much water different applications can use, and possibly balance if people are developing to somehow balance other uses, pay for off-site toilet replacements or something to balance their water use. There are lots of options. Menlo Park has a nice one I can pass along to the council sometime to look at. I have gotten started discussions with the Sustainability Commission, but I haven't gotten very far yet with them. But I can present more information for a broader, but just unfettered use of, yes, development and build when we're, and not looking at the numbers that staff provides for the water use for the different applications. I think the council needs to look at that.
Thank you, David.
Any other? Thank you.
Nope, thank you. Please come up, miss, and you can speak.
Carol Hughes, 2053 Damon Street. I was reading the comprehensive plan, and in the comprehensive plan it says that rapid population growth may strain infrastructure, exacerbate NIMBYism, negatively impact community character, and create significant and social service capacity issues. It also says that to protect and enhance green spaces, we need to reduce emissions, promote public awareness, and incentive programs focusing on public constructive specifications, requirements and retrofitting, and encouraging some other things. But mostly what I wanted to speak to, I don't love hasty development, and this seems to me, along with a few of the other projects, to be hasty. I won't object to Area 2 of the Harvest Hills Division, but I object to 1, the homes, the twin homes, the townhouses, and especially the business district. Mountain View, in about 9/10 of a mile, really lures those people seeking recreation, and mostly young people. From the junior high and its playfields to the Hamilton Low Aquatic Center, to the skate park, to the Egan Youth Center, to the ball fields, and to the 2 nature walks. In addition, the Nazarene Church and the Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints complex. All of those in 9/10 of a mile are luring, and they're well used. At 10 after 8 in the morning, last Friday, I tried to take a picture of, I counted 12 cars and a school bus waiting to cross the stop sign at the Egan Youth Center and the Moscow Middle School. And there was a crossing guard trying to cross a child with a bicycle. There's a lot of traffic there. The dangers that this additional traffic and congestion will pose to those people who use that area for recreation and for schooling, I think, is troublesome. And it doesn't matter that you say, well, the Mountain View Road is a certain kind of road and therefore it bears a lot of traffic. That can be changed. That doesn't have to stay written in stone. And I think that there are a lot of questions that are very serious questions that are unanswered. For example, what does the studies regarding congestion, traffic, and emissions what do those studies show? What do the studies show? I wouldn't even go into water because that's another, there's the Pollution Space and Aquifer Committee, and they could certainly cooperate with the University of Idaho and produce a study after many years, but I'd like to know when we could expect the results of such a study, and will those be public? But I do think that the dangers here are seriously underestimated by this nice-looking plan. I think about all the cars crossing that sidewalk, and it's dangerous.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Bill Belknap, will you comment on the comprehensive plan? There was a question on that, and I think it was worthwhile, and then we'll start back on the public hearing. The lady had a question on the comprehensive plan.
So that's a fairly broad question because the plan
Well,
addresses many
did you hear what she
elements.
said? Or,
But I can certainly clarify. I mean, the comprehensive plan.
well, the portion that she was speaking to is what I'm asking
And I
about.
wasn't sure that I understood specifically what section she was referring to in reading it.
1.21 is what she
So
said.
the general community vision statements.
Yeah.
So that there are multiple general vision statements.
I'll tell you what, why don't you take a look at it, and I'll ask if there's any other testimony, and then I'll give you a chance to come back to it, okay? How's that? Anybody else want to testify out there? Please come up.
Bill, can we just,
Hang on just a second, Maureen. Yes, sir.
Leonard Kepke, 108 North Mountain View Road. I am the neighbor immediately north and across the creek from this development. So I'm the one that shares approximately 300 feet of property line with them. The young lady pointed out that the planning and zoning turned this down previously because it didn't fit the neighborhood. Everything around, all the way around, are single-family homes. I'm not even sure why we're here because you've already made it clear that you're going to do this. And so I'm not sure why you're wasting our time and yours when we know, those of us who live there know that you're going to push this on us and let it be. There is no reason on this planet that those townhouses belong in this neighborhood. If you saw the picture, they're ugly. They do not look like a house. Everything else in both sides and up the hill are residential homes. This is an ugly monstrosity that I have to look at every time I step outside of my porch. One of the other things that they forgot to mention is when they showed the 100-year floodplain, that was modified because they stuffed 12 feet they lifted that lot 12 feet. So 2 years ago, I came home to 30 inches of water in my living room because that water could not go into that floodplain because they lifted that damn floodplain. And I'm $110,000 out of my pocket for that. And so, yeah, I'm a little pissed off. So the original plan was entirely different than what they've got now, and so it's a bait and switch. Those of us who live there know that you're going to support them, so I'm not sure what we're here for. The lady that mentioned the traffic is spot on. You can sit at the intersection of 6th and Mountain View for half an hour in the morning and the evening trying to get onto Mountain View. You put a stupid bicycle bridge at 3rd Street and a $100,000 plus or minus stoplight or a traffic crosswalk that I've seen 3 people use. I live there. I've lived there 19 years. I've seen that light come on 3 times in my lifetime. What a ridiculous concept. Put a bridge in, let the traffic come across 3rd Street, go up 3rd Street, because if they don't, they have to go up, and they'll go up B Street, or they'll go up 6th Street, but you got a big traffic jam that can't go anywhere. So turn down, at least at a minimum, turn down the townhouses. They don't need to be there. They don't fit. The motor business doesn't fit. We can take and go in 20 minutes, and I can show you 15 vacancies for motor business that are already in this town. Anybody that lives there knows that Safeway or the gas station or whatever is literally less than 9/10 of a mile down the street. We don't need more of the same in a residential neighborhood. So please tell them no. It does not fit the neighborhood. And that was the original intent, and that was the original meeting when every single person at that planning and zoning meeting stood up and said it does not fit The planning and zoning people stood up and said, it does not fit, we turn it down, and you guys said, forget that, we're gonna do it. And that's ridiculous.
Okay, Mr. Kupke, your time is up, sir.
Yeah, it sure is. Thanks.
Thank you. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we have public hearings because it's important to hear from everybody, whether they like something or whether they don't like something, so we can base a decision on the facts that are in front of us. If there are others that would like to come up and speak? Not, if somebody's already spoke, I'm not going to ask you to come back up again. Wait, Maureen?
Just, could you go over and talk to Bill so that he can answer your question? I mean, Bill's supposed to be looking for something that she doesn't know, he doesn't understand what she's talking about, and I think she could just show you, Bill, if you wanted that.
I did locate it.
Okay, great, thank you, I just wanted
Well,
to make
hang
sure.
on a second, we'll go to the end of the public hearing. There's a lady, you've already spoke, ma'am. Have you spoke yet? Nope. Okay, come on up, please, come on up. Come on up.
My name is Jean Elliott. I'm associated with property in rural Latah County. I'm going to whip through this really fast. Regarding all the developments coming, people want to move away from places with problems to Moscow because of what we have here. But they may turn Moscow into the places they left. Do we have to accept that? No, let's prevent that with happening with careful, knowledgeable, thoughtful planning, and I agree, not hasty. Number two, when you approve one development, and I thought I heard something about there's 10 or something coming before the city, plus the large ones on either end of the city. Do you have to approve those two in the sake of fairness? You start approving one and you got to approve them all. Number three, when you approve something and change it to a certain zoning or a certain allowance for whatever, can there be, like the gentleman said, a bait and switch, where you say you're going to do one thing and then you end up doing something else? For instance, could this grocery store be a gas station? And how many people would want to live next to a gas station? It might actually detract from this development to have a store there. As far as water rights, this is a huge issue. It seems like we have the cart before the horse. And just because you have a water right doesn't mean you have the water. And so people with junior water rights are going to have to either curtail or lessen their water use to meet the senior water rights demands. And I want to mention that I have attended a few PBAC meetings, and I mentioned something at the Planning and Zoning Committee that there may be chemicals that are needed. And I have an article from a Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine, 3rd edition. And the compounds that are in my notes from the PBAC meeting were several aluminum compounds that would need to be added to help purify the water. And in this article it says, it's talking about Alzheimer's disease and aluminum. And I don't have time to read very much of it, but it talks about how there's increased aluminum in these studies. There's a couple of articles listed. It says, the frightening news is that aluminum in water not only occurs naturally, but also is added in the form of alum to treat some water supplies. And I have it in my PBAC notes that that was something that might have to be done. And let's see, what other points did I have? It scares me, the number of people, proportion of people in these meetings that are going to profit from all these developments, whether it's the developers, the landowners that are selling the land, the survey engineering company, the real estate companies, and the agents, and if there's a group of people that want to sort of increase their population inside the city.
Ms. Elliott, your time is up.
And those are the points that I had.
Thank you.
I don't suppose I could mention one more thing.
You're done, ma'am. Thank you. Bill, you want to comment on the comp plan?
Yes, Your Honor. So the section that was referenced was a quotation out of a American Planning Association policy guide on planning and climate change. And so it did state, essentially the guide states that rapid population growth may strain infrastructure exacerbate NIMBYism, negative impact community character, and create significant social services capacity issues. It wasn't a statement of the comp plan. It was referencing a planning document published by the American Planning Association that was highlighting potentially some of the upcoming consequences that could come from climate change.
Okay, thank you.
It wasn't an adopted policy statement, a implementation objective, or a goal in the comp plan. It was just referencing a separate study.
Okay, thank you. Are there others out there that would like, Ms. Hughes, I'm not going to take more testimony from you. If, when we're done here, you're more than happy, you can go out in the hall and talk to Bill Knapp about the comprehensive plan if you wish, but we're going to keep on going. Is there anybody else that would like to speak that has not spoken yet? Okay, 8:29, and we'll close the public hearing. However, I will bring up, the applicant can come back up and revisit some of those questions, either Scott Becker or Phil Ringen, and then we'll bring Mike Ray back, whichever one of you want to answer some of those questions.
Yeah, Scott Becker with Hodge & Associates, 405 South Washington. I just wanted to touch on a few of the items that were spoken about. Houses in neighborhood business zone. The primary corner, which is on a collector and an arterial, that one is planned for a business, but the whole idea of the PUD is to have a little bit of flexibility to add housing in there that we could enhance that area. As far as what business is going in there, it has not been decided yet. There's not a tenant, so it would be anything that fits into the neighborhood business. Definitely not a gas station, so that's not a neighborhood business item. So I know that's popular to throw out there because gas stations are not really good in the neighborhood. So, but it's definitely could not be a gas station. What it is nobody knows right now, but there's that potential for something that would serve that community and maybe even, outstretch from there. The other thing, 3rd Street, we have looked at it, and it obviously does not go through yet, but eventually it does plan to go up around Mosier Park, over the hill, and down towards D Street. So yes, it doesn't continue on right now, but it does make that connection. Right now there's a gap in 3rd Street, so 3rd Street is not going to be a dead end going nowhere street. As far as a hasty development, my office has been working on this project for 16 years at least, so I wouldn't really call it hasty. We've looked at it from every angle, trying to, as standards have changed, originally we had a cul-de-sac in there, then the fire standards for turnarounds became so ominous that we couldn't put any housing if we put a cul-de-sac in. So that prompted some changes to where we had some flexibility of a one-way street through that, a private street, and that was something that we were able to fit into this development that you see tonight. Really, that's the highlights. I can answer any other questions that you might have. I know water's always an issue, but it's kind of out of the purview of what we do right now.
Questions for Mr. Becker from anybody? Brandy, you?
Maureen does too, but I guess I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, and just hearing the one resident too, this flooding thing. I mean, how do those residents nearby that have had some of this stuff happen, how can we be sure that this isn't, and I feel like I saw in one of your comments in response to a citizen's concern, an explanation of how this could actually help that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and once again, this pertains more towards what you'll hear later.
Okay,
in
we
the
can
evening.
hold on that then.
This development really doesn't have an impact on flooding, and I believe Mike or Bill could speak to some of the things that the city is planning to do to mitigate flooding through the city.
So the one man that came up and spoke about his house directly to the north of that?
We haven't changed the floodplain. The floodplain has been that since 2002. So that's when that was adopted. And so the study was probably closer to, in the late 90s. And then those get adopted after they've been reviewed for very long time. So we haven't changed the floodplain. That was the floodplain that we were working within. So it's outside of that.
And so you don't anticipate this affecting, so that could happen to him again, the way it is right now?
Yes.
And
Yeah, the way it
it's
is right now, it
not any
certainly
more or
could,
less
but
likely.
not more or less because of this development, no.
Maureen, you had a
But it seems to
question?
me that what you're trying to do here is make sure that these houses don't exacerbate the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we absolutely will detain additional water for that, so yes.
And someone wrote a letter to us basically asking, and I don't know if this goes to you or to Mike, so
Okay.
dodge it if you
Oh,
don't want
okay,
it.
stab
Here we
it.
go. It said something about, should they build, should we widen and clean out the creek? Would that answer the problem if we widened and cleaned out the creek?
In my experience, stream cleaning does help, but it's a arduous process to get the permitting. So
The problem with that, Maureen, too, is you got the Corps of Engineers that deal with a lot of that. Some of that's private property and private land, and you can't just go in there and clean that out and cut things through. So there's more to the story with that than would have to do with any development in that area.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that we responded to that
yeah,
question.
no, I appreciate that.
Okay, well, Council, Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Sir?
I did. And you kind of touched on this, but one of the bigger points of contention does seem to be that business, potential business. So are you planning to move forward with that because of the zoning or because you think it's going to be a good fit?
Both. So we always kind of thought that was a good fit for something in there. And like I said, it would be anything that could fit into the plan that's acceptable. It could be a daycare, it could be a dog grooming, could be something that really does fit more into a neighborhood than, say, downtown or in a mall. So really, it would be a neighborhood business that would be supported by the neighbors, or it wouldn't make any sense to put the neighborhood business there. So it wouldn't be something detrimental to the neighborhood, or it wouldn't be patronized.
Great. I was just wondering, what's driving what?
You have another
on that?
question for Scott?
Yeah, so, so it sounds like you've thought about at some point, when that time comes to develop that, would you plan on some outreach to the neighborhood to be sure that what's going in there is something
I would
that-
imagine that anybody who develops there is going to have some outreach to the neighborhood, because it would only make sense that they'd
Right.
want to know that it would be supported. I mean, if it wasn't supported, it would fail and you just have another empty building.
And one of the things that said could be a neighborhood business, I think it said like a coffee or espresso stand, but I also think I saw in somewhere in the minutes that it was stated that it could not be a drive-through.
That's correct. It cannot
Okay.
be a drive-through of any kind.
So maybe a coffee shop instead
Right,
of stand.
that was a little, okay.
We're almost
Thank
not
you.
to compete with you.
Thank you, Scott. Well, what the council has in front of them with this public hearing, there's four actions, and so I'm going to turn it over to council for discussion.
I had one more question for
We-
Bill.
To who, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was a gentleman who asked about this becoming or being commercial, even though there was residential. Can you explain neighborhood business and how that functions? Because you can have both, right?
You can. Residential uses are permitted use by rights as long as it's behind or above commercial uses. If the council were to approve the PUD, the lots that are shown as being residential will be limited to residential use only, unless the applicant came back for a PUD amendment and another public hearing. So as approved, everything that's shown is either a twin home or townhouse lot would be restricted to that use. And commercial uses would be only limited to the 17,000 square foot lot.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that was answered.
I have just a
Brandy?
follow-up on that too. So I was going to ask about the same thing. So there would be no need to rezone those parcels with the residences? Because
Correct.
once this is approved, it can only be residences despite the fact that it's zoned.
Correct, and residential uses are allowed in that zoning district. Correct.
But they wouldn't be able to put something commercial on the ground floor of one of these 10 years from now?
No, if this was just a plat, then we wouldn't have a restriction on use, but because it's a planned unit development, it then addresses the buildings, the floor plans, the elevations you've seen, and it limits the use of the property to the project as presented.
Okay.
Art,
Could you put up the list of acceptable business uses in a neighborhood business zone, please? A lot of discussion is centered around the prospect of businesses, and Are convenience stores part of the list, or is it more professional office and service type of businesses like Picard Orthodontics, the eye doctor at the corner of Blaine and 6th, the ophthalmologist there? Those are the neighborhood businesses. Funeral home? No.
We only need one of those.
Yeah. Oh, no.
What happened? You had him.
Wrong button.
There we go.
So retail uses are on that list.
Oops. Whoa, there we go.
Yeah. Restaurants, coffee espresso shops,
Veterinary services, childcare.
retail and personal services. So I suppose convenience store could fit under retail service.
Correct.
Okay, Gina.
I understand that, and I'm not directly affected by it, but I understand that a development of this magnitude feels like a giant change. I have to say that I am applauding the design, and I think that the careful, creative way that you've approached to even trying to fit the houses into the spots is very good. And I actually really like that center piece too. I like that there's a chance maybe for a bench or something, you know. I just think that with that piece of property and our present need for housing so badly, and the way that the first development is being done, it flows well.
All right. Just by way of getting my thoughts out there, one is that neighborhood business as it stands could have a full 2-point-something acres of neighborhood business on it. As is, with the addition of the residential component, it substantially decreases the potential impact on that corner of having several businesses all together there on the full 2 acres instead of on the, half acre
Takes
size that
17,000
it
square
is,
feet.
yeah. So that, also, Mr. Schoenberg's comments were well taken by me, in that part of our housing cost issue that we have in this town is due to the supply and demand. We don't have a supply, but we've got plenty of demand, and therefore a lot of people are being priced right out. And so it's a balancing act between providing the supply and bringing in too many people and outgrowing our abilities to cope. One question for you, Mike, is when calculating the water use, what metric was used as the basis of one house? Because these places, the townhomes, the twin homes, have much reduced yard size, and that means less irrigation in the summer and potentially less water use, depending on what the metric was that was used for the calculations for the 1.3 million gallons.
It's mainly just based upon occupants, 2.25 occupants per household.
So that encompasses everything from a half an acre or acre on a suburban residential lot all the way down to the townhome lots. So that's kind of a gushy bit of data to get a hand on. And let's see. So, yeah, and I don't think, and I think was also pointed out was that the traffic load will not always be a traffic load coming onto Mountain View. It will go through off to the exit out onto the other side. The traffic circle at 6th coming up the roundabout should help a bit with things, help move traffic through a little more gently, and who knows, eventually maybe the bridge will reappear on 3rd Street over the creek. I don't know. But so far, the developers have put in an application that meets all the check marks under the current ordinances. And although there are concerns, I think that what the developers have done is fulfill their obligation to stick within the ordinances that exist.
I have a
Brandy?
quick question. Does that commercial lot empty onto Third, not onto Mountain View? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
It shares the private street.
right, okay.
Other questions from
I
council?
have kind of a weird one, and it may not be this section. What kind of infrastructure, you said water and sewer and that kind of thing, what about internet? What are the plans for that?
That's
Internet.
provided by, that's not a city utility that's furnished, that's franchise utilities, so power, gas, communications, those are provided by the franchise utility providers in the city. So that will be added. It's standard with all construction is they'll be running conduits.
ground.
Correct, underground conduits for
That's
franchise utility services to the
What I
lots.
wanted to hear. Thank you.
Okay.
Can
Brandy?
I ask Bill to speak just briefly about when the plan is for the Mountain View improvement, the big project along there?
The project from Sixth to
But that's-
Joseph?
The roundabouts, what you're talking about?
And Sixth to Joseph, but,
So the only one on the docket is the Sixth to Joseph
Right.
project.
That- yeah,
So
that's-
that was originally, we were hoping to advance for construction this year. LTAC was unable to get it to bid in time for construction this summer. That is scheduled for construction next summer.
Okay. Well,
well, one other, just comment, I would have along the lines of just commenting at this point, I think, it has been really tough, the housing market and the whole affordable housing issue, and we do need more diversity of housing. And the one thing that makes this, this is an example of infill, which we're hearing from people, all kinds of people, and I know that no one, I understand, I'm not super wild about lots of big developments here in Moscow either on a personal level, but just objectively, infill is to me the priority for where we should be building versus sprawl as far as the order of preference, which is not what it all comes down to. It's not all about my preference, but this is an example of infill, so.
okay. Gina, did you have something?
Well, I was going to make a motion.
Okay.
And there were conditions, correct, with this?
Well, there's 4 actions.
Well, the first one, my question is, do I need to approve it with conditions?
No, not necessarily, because you got some other actions underneath of it that would come with it.
The preliminary plat, you would.
Oh,
Okay,
so you have some
so
conditions you
so
want?
the one I'm looking at right now is the PUD, correct?
Yes.
That's the first one.
Yes.
Okay, so the preliminary plat has the conditions, so then I move that we approve the PUD for Harvest Hills.
Second.
Further discussion?
Excuse me, Jean, did that come with conditions, like the engineering condition right there? Go back up again, X1.
My understanding was that's for the next step.
Yeah.
Oh, so they can put it into the number 2 right here?
Well, it's good.
Okay, sorry,
Right.
does get confusing.
Okay.
I had a comment. Yeah, so a lot of people talked about water tonight, and so I wanted to touch on that before voting. So I sat on PBAC, Pollution Space and Aquifer Committee, as the city council representative for the last 2 years. And in talking about these developments, because it keeps coming up, I had a couple conversations with staff and spent some time thinking about it. And I think that what I would like to see, rather than us try to put any kind of stipulations on specific developments, is really push for an alternative. I think that that's the point that we're at. We've been researching this for a really long time, and I think it makes a lot more sense than to think about that question in terms of each individual development, especially because we're at a place where the state has identified funding for making that transition. So I just wanted to talk about that briefly in relation to this development and any others that come up.
Good point, Ann.
Yeah.
Any other conversation before I take a roll here? Okay, Maureen, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Brandy?
Aye.
And Gina?
Aye.
Okay. Now you have action number 2.
I would move that we adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Sandra to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards. I will start the roll with Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, action number 3.
I would move approval of the preliminary plat with the 2 engineering considerations and the 1 further condition on the type A landscape buffer that was in the proposal tonight as well.
Second?
Okay. Okay, we got a motion by Art to approve the preliminary plat with the 2 conditions, engineering conditions recommended by planning and zoning, as well as the type A buffer zone, correct?
Correct.
Can I ask you to comment on that, Mike, before we vote on that?
Can I just get clarification? So are you intending to just be the neighborhood business lot for the type A
Yes.
buffer?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Right, as was mentioned in tonight, but didn't make it up onto the screen.
Okay, and that should already be encompassed within the PUD.
Yeah, it seemed to be a slightly different action, so just to be double sure, there it is.
Okay.
And if it's redundant, no harm.
Okay.
Maureen, did you have a?
That answered the question.
Okay, very good. Okay, so everybody understands the motion. I will start with Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
Okay, action number 4.
I move that we adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria.
Second. Oh, good.
Okay. Got a motion by Gina and a second by Sandra to adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria. And I will start to roll with Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art, sorry.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 7, thank you very much, Michael. With that, we
You're
are
on
gonna
round
go-
2.
We are going to go right into another public hearing. Item number 7, public hearing, Harvest Hills, 2nd edition. This is the preliminary plat. Michael Ray will be presenting on this as well.
Thank you again, Your Honor. So this is a preliminary plat request for Harvest Hills 2nd edition. And this property is directly to the east of the property we're just discussing. So Harvest Hills 1st edition, you can see here to the west. Harvest Hills 2nd is proposed to be outlined in the red here on your screen. Also have Mosier Park, which has been dedicated directly to the east of this property. You can see the roadway alignment in the area, 3rd Street coming up, ending up extending through the property and then tying in with Rolling Hills 8th edition. Once again, this is an older map, and a lot of the properties, houses within Rolling Hills 8th have been developed along this stretch of 3rd Street. To the north, you have Damon, Mosier Streets within those additions, as well as to the south, primarily the Rolling Hills additions. So it's 17.2 acres in area. The proposal is to create 56 single-family parcels, which range in size from a little over 7,200 square feet to a little over 24,000 square feet in size. I'm going to go through the entire background now for this for this property. Bear with me. So back in 2005, this property was annexed and rezoned from Ag Forest to R2. There was the Windfall Hills subdivision that was proposed. So 77 single-family residential lots, 9,700 square foot average lot size, and then the roadway alignment's virtually the same as what is being requested tonight. And that was approved in 2005 in August. And this was the proposed Windfall Hills subdivision. So you can see virtually the same. And in 2006, the applicant submitted a PUD. There was some architectural details. Front yard setbacks were proposed to be reduced because of the topography, providing additional landscaping, public amenities as part of the PUD, and that was approved July 19th of 2006. And then 2008, the developer Windfall Hills approached the city about a Verizon pedestal that needed to be moved as part of the proposed subdivision. At the time, the city was really contemplating road improvements on Mountain View. And the city had desire to extend Jansen Street, which is connected to the north of the Plat boundary with the intersection with Damon Street. And then the 2008 Memorandum of Understanding was entered into by the city and the developer. And that occurred April 21st, 2013. It should be 2008, excuse me, that's an error on there. So it stated the city would contribute $50,000 towards the relocation of the Verizon pedestals and be responsible for underground utilities on the Jansen Street extension. And the developer is responsible for public improvements to Mountain View, including bicycle pedestrian path on the east side and above ground improvements for the Jansen Street extension. And then July 21st of 2008, the final plat and development agreement were approved. Some conditions in the 2008 MOU were not satisfied. So now enter the 2009 MOU. The city was responsible for improving the Mountain View, including paving, curb gutter, drainage, and the developer was responsible for the total cost of Jansen, and that included the underground utilities in phase 1. And then they're required to dedicate street right-of-way and 25-foot and 35-foot wide easements on the east side of Mountain View, which so happens to be the parkland that was dedicated. And then the final plat had to be recorded by June 3rd, 2009. So the city has constructed the agreed upon improvements to Mountain View. Developer only completed the easement dedications, and then they never filed the Windfall Hills final plat or paid for the Jansen Street construction, and then the final plat expired. And that brought us to the 2013 Harvest Hills proposal, and we've already gone through this in the last presentation unless you have any questions, but this is what was approved at the time. And then they ended up dividing the lot and just developing the 7.45 acre portion with a rezone comp plan amendment preliminary plat that included the 22 twin homes in the neighborhood business lot. And then February 1st, 2016, City Council ended up approving the proposed rezone comp plan amendment, and then the council ended up approving the Harvest Hills first edition with those 3 conditions that we discussed previously. So that brings us to the subject property tonight. So this is a topography map showing those 1-foot contours. You can see quite a steep slope on the south, and then the property sloping to the north. You have a drainage way here from stormwater being conveyed across the property from the Rolling Hills additions. And then the eastern portion of the property, you can see Mosier Street properties to the north, as well as the extension of 3rd and Rolling Hills 8th edition on the south, and then the Mosier Park to the east. Taking a look at the comp plan designation, currently designated as auto urban residential. Comp plan states that those are predominantly single family, 7,000 to 11,000 square feet in size lots. Surrounded uses may require residents to rely more on automobile transportation. Low to moderate density residential uses, 3 to 6 units per acre. Could include a mixture, so it could include single family, twin home, townhouse residential dwellings. And then it points to 3 appropriate zoning designations, the R1, R2, and R3 zones. And then this is the zoning configuration of the area. You can see the subject properties R2, as well as surrounding properties to the south, north, and to the east. And then, of course, Harvest Hills first edition is neighborhood business and R3 combination. So taking a look at what the zoning code states about the R2 zone, it's appropriate in the following circumstances: where single-family dwellings predominate the area, terrain's not harsh or irregular, and smaller lot sizes can be accommodated. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate. Existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the plan will also guide application of the zoning district. And then it's primarily a single-family zone, so single-family residential dwellings are allowed, as well as some of the urban agriculture, group childcare facilities, and public parks and recreation facilities. So that brings us to the preliminary plat. 56 single-family lots proposed, ranging from a little over 7,200 to 25,000 square feet in size. The minimum lot size for the R2 zone is 7,000 square feet, and the minimum lot width is 60 feet. Taking a look at the average lot size for this development is 10,368 square feet in size, equates to 4.20 units per net acre. And then we just ran a quick calculation of just average lot sizes in the area of some of the adjacent subdivisions. So you can see Mosier Estates, a little over 12,000, Skyview, 13,500, Damon, 10,374, Rolling Hills, 6th through 8th, generally around 9,500 to 11,000, 12,000 square feet in size for the average lot size. So 3rd Street is a collector, 34-foot wide street section for collectors. It includes bike lanes on both sides of the street, no on-street parking. curb gutter sidewalks, of course, on both sides. And then looking at our local neighborhood streets, which are Jansen Street and Amber Court, the 28-foot wide street section includes parking on just one side of the street. And of course, there's curb gutter sidewalks on both sides as well. So this brings us to the preliminary plat. This is the far westerly portion of the subject property. So you can see pretty uniform lot sizes as you see the extension of 3rd Street here. And then heading to the southeast, some larger lot sizes. This is Jansen Connection here to the north. And then this would be Amber Court. So you can see some larger lot sizes transitioning to more traditional R2 lots, and then some larger lot sizes around the cul-de-sac. Looking a little bit closer, you can see there's 2 pedestrian connections being proposed. Rolling Hills 8th currently includes a pedestrian easement that extends from 3rd Street north and terminates at the property boundary. That'll be continued into the development to provide connection to the park property and Amber Court. So this is a pedestrian easement. It will be developed with a sidewalk. And then we have a part of a Parkland Dedication would connect Amber Court at the very end. It's 10 feet in width with Mosier Park property to the east. And the center of the cul-de-sac would also be a Parkland Dedication being proposed by the applicant. Kind of faint, hard to see, but you can see the green dashed line is intended to represent the collector designation of 3rd Street. So it extends through the property, heads south to Rolling Hills 8th, will eventually continue on in the Rolling Hills additions to the east, and is intended to head due north and eventually connect to D Street, which is a minor arterial. Water service, currently water mains extended to the terminus of 3rd. Those will be extended along that alignment of 3rd. And then, of course, our comprehensive water system plan indicates that there's adequate potable fire flows to serve the proposed development. Sanitary, there are 8-inch mains currently in the 3rd Street alignment. And then it was part of a agreement between Windfall Hills developer and Rolling Hills developer to extend the mains along that 3rd Street alignment. So that's why they're currently there. And then the 2011 Comprehensive Sewer System Plan indicates that there's adequate capacity to serve additional flow that could be generated from this proposed subdivision. Brings us to storm sewer, conveyed through mains and 3rd, stormwater detention ponds in the northwest and southwest corners of the subdivision. Stormwater mains from Rolling Hills additions currently discharges, I think I pointed that out previously on the map, onto the property, and then drains to a 24-inch culvert between lots 2 and 3 of Skyview Estates addition, Damon directly to the north. And then ends up discharging into Paradise Creek just upstream of the Bridge Street Bridge. So as a result, it will no longer be surface discharging. It'll be connected to the existing stormwater mains within Harvest Hills First Edition. So this is a storm sewer map of the area. So those brown lines represent our storm sewer mains. You can see the connection of storm mains as well as stormwater detention ponds within Rolling Hills additions here to the southeast. Pretty much all this drainage, even on Panorama, ends up being conveyed into this area, into stormwater detention ponds and being discharged onto the property. Ends up being picked up by that 24-inch culvert that we discussed and being conveyed and discharged into Paradise Creek north or just upstream of the Bridge Street Bridge crossing. So after the connection's made, that'll no longer occur, being discharged across the property. They'll be connected in storm sewer mains, which will be tied into the storm mains within the First Edition, which should greatly improve the water that some of those properties see on the southern edge of their property. And it's just a closer view. So Parkland Dedication, there is 13.32 acres of net developable land. R2 zone requires 5%. There is a 29,000 square foot dedication requirement. There are those previous dedications. So there is 11,265 square foot of parkland in excess of what was required for Harvest Hills First Edition that was banked for future phases. So there results in a 17,747 square foot dedication requirement, and the applicant's proposing the center island in Amber Court. That's 19,083 square feet in size, as well as the 10-foot wide access parcel, which is 1,525 square feet, and that ends up connecting Mosier Park. The Parks and Rec Commission and Department recommends acceptance of the proposed Parkland dedication. And this is just to clarify those two pieces there, the center tract for the primary dedication, and then the connection from Amber to Mosier Park. Planning and Zoning Commission did conduct a public hearing for this matter, and it occurred at the same meeting as the PUD, April 28th, 2021, and they recommended approval of the proposed preliminary plat with no conditions. And staff recommends the council conduct the public hearing and upon consideration of testimony presented, approve the proposed preliminary plat with no conditions. And then, of course, in accordance with the council's decision on the preliminary plat, adopt the P&Z's RCS document. And I'd certainly try to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mike? Art.
Yeah, could you explore a little bit more the fate of Jansen Street connection? When does that happen?
Well, that was the intention of all that detail I provided in the beginning, that the developer is essentially responsible for the connection of Jansen Street. So it'll come along with all the infrastructure for Harvest Hills Second Edition. Before they can pull any building permits to develop any of the lots, that'll need to be completed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions for Mike before I open the public hearing? Okay, we will open the public hearing. It's 9:05. We'll hear from the applicant, please.
Thank you, Mike. Scott Becker, Hodge & Associates, 405 South Washington. I think Mike covered most everything, but I did want to touch on the stormwater for this portion, which I believe everybody was concerned about the flooding. So if you look at the map there, all the water from the south to the center of the road, that'll all be captured and collected and taken down to the detention pond and not run off the other side. In addition to that, you'll have housing on the north side, and the roofs will be tight line drained to the stormwater connection. So any house footprint will also collect the water and send it to the street. So that eliminates most of your runoff. There's always a chance of a drift in the winter, something like that. But I think you'll see, after this is developed, you'll see a marked improvement in the stormwater issues on the other side, especially with landscaping and the other things that come along with it. You know, as a farm field, it would be tilled up in the winter and run water off anyway. So I think this should actually improve things for the residents to the north.
Okay. So, questions for Scott and Maureen?
It appeared to me that when Mike was talking, that there's something about the stormwater going over down to Damon?
Correct. And that's what it does right now.
Right, so the question there is, Damon seems to be an area that is of particular concern from the last flood. So will this, in fact, do anything to improve or mitigate the problems that people over in that area does, or will it exacerbate it again?
No, it will improve. It will take all that water that goes to Damon right now. There's also a culvert there. You can't really see it very well, but it's right about where the Block 1 symbol is. Sorry, my eyesight's not any better. That symbol, there's also a culvert. Right now, that takes all of this storm water that would be diverted to the pond. Right now, it goes through that culvert and through Damon Street, causes some additional flooding.
Okay.
So that will be, the culvert will stay, but it won't be taking water to it.
Because that seems to satisfy a lot of the people who live in that area that have contacted and said.
Right, and like I said, until the houses are constructed, well, at least until the street is constructed, it'll start to improve at that point. So hopefully we can jump on it.
Brandy had a question.
I think, so that's great in the long term when that's all done. What about the construction phase itself, which people have had some negative experiences with?
Yeah, during construction, silt fence will be constructed on the north side. There will be a berm or kind of a swale that'll be graded in the back. The swale will stay. Obviously, it would a homeowner could change that, but it's not likely that they would mess with that. We're not talking about a huge swale, but just a little bit of a berm that even the silt fence will help create. So the silt fence, the swale, you can see where it would break, the water will break both ways, about 5 or 6 lots in. It breaks both ways if there was a swale in the back. So all of those things will help to mitigate any issues during and after construction.
I have one quick
Okay, go
follow-up.
ahead, Brandy.
So this, I don't know, this is maybe a question for Gary, I'm not sure, but if there are issues that people have nearby during the construction season, does that come to the city to deal with? Does it go to the developer?
Typically, we'll receive the call,
Mhm.
and then we'll go out and do a site inspection and visit. So there'll have to be an erosion sediment control plan that will be approved for the project. That'll identify how stormwater is managed during construction. It'll identify what sediment erosion control practices will be installed and put in place. There's a security that the developer has to furnish that provides a financial security that should a erosion sediment control device fail and the developer fails to correct the issue, then the city has funding to hire somebody to make that correction. But typically, if there's an issue, there's a complaint, it typically comes into our office, and then we'll dispatch an inspector to go on site to ensure what's happening and making sure that those erosion and sediment control devices stay in place.
I'm thinking about our new stormwater utility and some of the requirements for that as well, that has to do with the controls in construction areas. So could that be coming into play at the time that this is happening, or is that too soon?
Probably too soon. That permit has a 5-year program, probably 4 years left in that to develop those measures and local practices and controls and best management practices. And so that's probably, depending upon the timing of the actual development of this project, may not be in force at that time. But all of our standard erosion sediment control practices, which, may not be substantially different than what we currently have, but maybe just enhanced and maybe a little bit more robust in our current standards, will be in place during the time of this project.
Thank you.
Okay, well, with that, let's hear from folks that are in favor of this. Please come up, and I'll give you 3 minutes. State your name and what you'd like to talk about.
I'm the applicant.
Yep.
Clearly on the pro side. I'm Phil Ryan-Gens. And at the end, I'd like to come back up to field any questions you may have. But we've owned the property for some period of time and have really wrestled through how to design so that we can make a development that's fitting, not only for the property itself, but in terms of the size of the lots, and it fits with the neighborhood and whatnot. And so if there are any questions, I'd be happy to field them later. But we really have tried to make something that's compatible and that addresses the design considerations that are, that have come up.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Okay, I would take testimony and those in opposition or general testimony.
David Hall, 1334 Wallen Road. I echo my comments from the previous hearing. Can they be incorporated, or do I have to repeat them again?
It's a new public hearing, so you should repeat them, David.
Okay.
Please.
Moscow is trying to reduce water use from our declining aquifers and spending money on coming up with alternative water supplies. Yet the city allows unfettered development and the associated increase in water use. This makes little sense. The city needs a plan which should include a water use budget. And I can add a little bit on that. I don't remember the exact date, but more than 10 years ago, the Moscow City Council had on their goals, the official goals, to develop a water use budget, and they put, I think, $10,000. They had a budget line item for it. And then it disappeared off of the council goals. It was in a workshop that wasn't recorded, and I don't know how it disappeared. but it has been on the one of like the top 5 or 10 goals to do that, to create a water use budget. And one other quick thing. Let's see, under PBAC, the Moscow and all the pumping entities, I think you're supposed to limit their pumpage increases if they have to increase by 1%. And even this small, relatively small development, staff is suggesting 5.24 million gallons a year, and some of these have big yards, so they probably would have outdoor water use than the other part. And last year in 2020, Moscow pumped 747 million gallons, and at 5.24, that's a good chunk of that 1% increase just in this relatively small development. So I sound like a broken record, but that's my testimony. And I meant to say thank you for the opportunity, Council and Mayor, for speaking.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
One thing I'll say about water, and Councilor Ann Zabala had said this earlier, she's a liaison to PBAC, and there is 4 alternative selections they've been grilling over now for 4 or 5 years. And they really need to get a selection this year and say, this is what we're going to do. And from my point of view, it's recharge the aquifer. And that's what I'd like to see. And so I'm glad that this fall we'll have a meeting that'll be open, because we won't have to worry about the COVID restrictions, and we can talk about that. But the water issue for us, we need an alternative water supply, and we need to move forward with it. And as Ann has said, yes, there's monies available through the state, and I think probably nationally as well. And so that's part of the infrastructure long-term that needs to be going right now and getting done. We've talked about it for 30 years, and the talk needs to stop, and we need to get the thing done. So if that'll still take testimony, just thought I'd throw that out there, folks. Come on up, ma'am.
Jean Elliott, associated with Land Rural, Latah County. I'll try to repeat some of the things I already said, but first I want to say things I didn't say. Is there a requirement, or could there be one developed quickly for all these developments that would require low-flow toilets and shower heads and any other water-conserving measures? Could we have any ongoing town hall meetings for the city folks and the rural to come together regarding this community, the agricultural land, the city, the development, all of that? You're so limited when you come to these meetings, and it's all recorded, and you got 3 minutes. There was a gentleman here during the planning and zoning that mentioned something about some frogs that were in this area that's being developed. And I think we've all heard that with climate change and other population growth, there's species that are having trouble, insects, including bees, amphibians. And I was just wondering if it could be suggested that the developer reach out to a conservation group such as PCEI or something to capture and relocate the frogs before they and their habitat is covered over with dirt and concrete and everything else. And the things I said earlier were, people are moving here, and if we don't watch it, they're going to turn our place, our beautiful city here, everybody brags that it's small, a wonderful community. Well, it could change easily if we don't get a handle on this. And I'm concerned about, it's just going to be one development after another, and how are you going to discern which ones to curtail a little bit? Do we have to have infinite growth? I mean, just because people want to make money off of what's happening in the U.S. right now. And let's see, I guess, and again, the water rights is not without its drawbacks, as far as other people in this county that are going to have their land taken or destroyed, and the chemicals that might be added to the water. And also, there's a predominance of the people at this meetings that are set to profit from this kind of thing. as I said in my other comments, the developers, the engineering company, real estate companies, and that doesn't seem right to me. Thank you. And I do appreciate being able to speak to you, and I hope that this is not a rubber stamp follow the leader group, and everybody will think on their own and have enough courage to occasionally disagree with the group.
Thank you. One thing I'll say, and before I ask for any more testimony right now, is that, our county roughly is a little over 40,000 populace. The state of Idaho is growing, one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing state in the nation. And you could very easily see 15% growth, 10 to 15% growth. And it wouldn't surprise me in 15 years for this county to be 60,000. It's going to happen. Growth's going to come. It's coming. We're not going to stop it. And so we need to work out through these things that we need to fix. And water is one of those things we need to fix it and move forward with it. And that's something that we're going to be looking at, because the land usage thing is going to be something that's here to stay with us as we go, whether I'm the mayor, whether somebody else is the mayor. So I just wanted to throw that out there, folks. It's happening all over the state, and it's going to continue to happen because people like to come to Idaho. With that, I will continue in general testimony or opposition. Please come up, Mrs. Hughes, and you'll have to identify yourself again, Carol, of course.
Carol Hughes, Damon Street. I'm at the top of Damon, so I won't suffer from much water collection, but I know that my neighbors at the bottom have been complaining about it. My questions are two, and I don't really expect answers to either one, but we talk about the need for more housing, which I don't really see because there are so many vacant apartments and storefronts, but I wonder why we don't have better housing for seniors who are frequently looking for single-family, smaller places. And there don't seem to be many of those available. Also, I wondered if, no, I don't say I wonder. I would advocate that members of any county commission or committee who stands to benefit from the outcome of a vote recuse himself from that vote. And I just wonder if that isn't somewhere in the code or in the suggestions for how committees and commissions should be conducted.
That's a standard policy.
Yeah.
It's standard, Carol. It happens all the time. If
That
somebody
they do, that they vote anyway.
No, they recuse themselves when they mention that. That's a standard that we have, and we've had it for years here in Moscow.
So my next question then would be, so what happens if you know that somebody has an interest, a serious interest, I mean, doesn't try to hide it at all, but still participates in the vote? I mean,
Well, that doesn't happen. If it does happen, we need to know about it when it does happen, because that doesn't happen. Thank you. Okay, are there others that would like to come up and speak? Okay, I'll close public hearing 9:21. The applicant, if you'd like to come back up, Mr. Reagan, and speak, you may.
I'm willing to address any questions you may have.
Council have any questions for?
I have a question for you. And one is do you have an estimated time in terms of when you anticipate this development to start? Will you finish one before two comes up?
Part of that will depend upon the schedules of available underground contractors. Everyone's very busy right now, and scheduling any kind of contracting is tenuous at best. The goal would be, well, the ideal scenario would be to do the grading this year and begin building there next year.
Okay, but I guess my question is the development that we talked about in the first one and the development in addition to, are you going to start with one and then go to two in terms of building the houses?
That would be the goal, yes.
And I think in response to a lot of what the conversation has been here, whatever feedback comes up with, there's also just an encouragement to make sure that the houses that we build are consistent with the two priorities that we now have as the city right now, which is water usage and climate issues and conservation.
I understand. All of our houses are insulated to a higher standard than code, and all the requirements for low flow that are part of the code are incorporated. If you'd like to come by, I can show you how we insulate, and it's beyond what the code requires.
Brandy?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but it's along those same lines, and it's just more of, I guess, a wish that if you haven't already at some point in the future connecting with some of the city folks like Kelly Cooper and Tyler Palmer about some of the opportunities, like the wisescaping incentives that maybe could even be offered as a development is happening and lots are being sold, could possibly be something that's explored as how that landscape is put in with the buyers, also being educated on the benefits of that to them and the cost savings, as well as, you know, the permeable surface kinds of driveways that are going to help their stormwater utility bills and in that stage when they're going in. I just hope that maybe if you haven't already, you can connect with finding out how those features can benefit those buyers and make your lots both more desirable and also help with that water conservation issue.
I understand. On the, well, I'll take it in two parts. On the driveways, I don't know if we're actually able to put in a driveway that's permeable. I can look into that, but my understanding is that that's not to code. As far as the landscaping itself, I build and I don't have a landscaping business, and I don't pretend to know enough about landscaping to venture into that area. So oftentimes with a homeowner, we'll reference several companies in the area that specialize in that and that really know a lot more and have a greater degree of expertise in that area. It's just not my expertise. I'm not opposed to it, but
Right.
I don't provide landscaping, partly because I don't know what to do.
Right. I wouldn't expect that. I think just, I guess, as I said, just my wish that if you had the time to get together some information from someone else who does know how those things can benefit and the resources to pass along in that stage before a big lawn is put in, so that those who might want that are aware of it and it can happen at the outset.
I would caution the council from getting too far
Yeah.
from the question.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's getting slightly later, and so every once in a while, strange things come out of these meetings.
Yeah.
So we do, in fact, need to move on with that. But thank you, Mr. Reagan. If somebody has another question, I'll bring it up from that. I'm going to turn it over to Ken. Did you have something, man?
I did.
Okay.
Probably a Gary Bill question, but I wanted to ask about, this hasn't happened in my time, and I've certainly recused myself during certain votes, but if somebody did have a concern about that, what would their recourse be?
The city attorney is on the call. If Mia, can you participate in that?
Who knows what time it is?
Sorry about that. I'm here. I've been here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And so the question is the recourse if someone had a conflict and did not recuse themselves.
Yes.
I think the way to do that is to have that action item back on the agenda for that person to explain, to address the conflict, recuse himself, and then to have a revote on the matter.
Thank you.
If in fact happens.
Yeah,
Correct.
I guess my advice would be if a party feels that there was a conflict of interest, that they could consult with the city attorney and have the city attorney investigate the matter and determine what course of action might be appropriate from there.
And the question is to make sure that those inquiries are made as soon as that appearance of conflict is discovered, because the Idaho Ethical Government Ethics Act lays out all the rules that you need to follow so that a conflict of interest can be identified, and not everything is a conflict of interest. It's spelled out in Idaho code what is a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Let's turn it over to the council. Who wants to go first? Art, you want to go first?
I
Two
think this
actions.
is, yeah, this is just a continuation of what's been floating around for 16 years and finally getting to a point, but not wishing to step on anybody else, I'd make a motion to approve the preliminary plat.
Second.
Okay, and as I said, we have two actions, and that's action number one. And Art made a motion to approve the preliminary plat with Gina's second. And I will start to roll with Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
Okay, and then there is a second action.
Well, I would further move that we adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria. And I will start to roll with you, Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael, for the great presentations. And right now, at the moment, folks, it is 9:29. We were going to take a 5-minute recess, so I need to stretch my legs. And I think everybody else in here does too. We will come back at 9:34. We are back now, and it is 9:36, and we are jumping to item number 9, as Gary Reedner, our city supervisor, said earlier in the evening. We had 8 and 9 flip-flops, so we got to go to 9, then we're going to go back to 8. So we will go with number 9, University Gateway 6 final planned unit development and final plat. And we've got Michael Ray with us, so it's a Michael Ray show for a long time tonight. So Mike.
Hopefully the end of it here. So this is the final review for the University Gateway on 6 project. It's a final plat and a final PUD. And it's 2.49 acre area. It's generally located north of the intersection of 6th Street and Deacon Avenue. There was a subdivision plat, University Gateway on 6th edition. It included 27 townhouse parcels, 1 multifamily parcel, and 3 central business parcels. The PUD component included 27 townhouses, a 4-story multifamily building, which contained 18 dwelling units, as well as an enclosed parking garage on the first floor. It did utilize 2 existing parking lots, and those were previously used for the University of Idaho student parking. And then there's access via an internal courtyard. It also serves as emergency services access. There was a rezone that was associated that was approved by council. Previously was a combination of the motor business, R4, central business, and university zoning districts, largely as a result of the old railroad corridor through there. So we had some fragmentation of the zoning districts, and that was rezoned to a combination of central business and R4, really to clean up the designation. So it occurred on September 8th. The council approved the University Gateway on 6th edition preliminary plat with those same 3 conditions recommended by P&Z, and approved the PUD and rezoned with no conditions. The 3 conditions on the preliminary plat were, the first 2 were really associated with utilities, making sure that taps were in the correct place, as well as easements. And then the third pertained to just reiterating that the access drive at the southwest end, so the internal courtyard is intended for just emergency services and pedestrian access only, just mainly due to the proximity of the intersection on Deacon Avenue and 6th Street. So on April 9th of this year, the applicant submitted the final subdivision plat and final PUD to be reviewed by Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. And really, this final process is intended to allow the council to review the final plans for conformance with the intent, as well as the conditions of the preliminary approvals. So this is the subject property outlined in red on your screen. You can see Gormley Park to the west, some storage units to the north, veterinary clinic to the north there. These were the 2 parking lots that were previously associated with the University of Idaho. Surrounded to the northeast and the north and to the east primarily by residential uses, so ranging from single family to multifamily structures. Patty's Kitchen here is to the south. You also have West 6th Street running east-west to the south as well. So this is the proposed final plat that's been submitted. You can see those 27 townhouse lots that wrap around the horseshoe-shaped portion of the northern part of the property, as well as a grouping of townhouses here to the west. This would be the R4 parcel, and these would be the 3 central business parcels there to the south. This would be the PUD plan, so you can see the construction of the internal courtyard with paving there in the darker shade. So you have a 20-foot wide section here, ends up transitioning to a 26-foot wide section to allow ladder truck access around the multifamily building. You can see the townhouse footprints, as well as some amendments to the parking lots here to the east and to the northeast. And then access provided here to the southeast corner. And this is existing access, which comes off 6th Street directly to the east of Patty's Kitchen and west of the Pour Company store. This would be the sample elevation. So these have not changed from the preliminary approval. There's 3 townhouses that are proposed. This is just one of those. That's a rear elevation. And then these are just floor plans. So living room, bedroom, bathroom, hallway, covered front porch, stairway on the first floor, leading up to living, kitchen area, bedroom, additional stairs, bathroom on the second floor, and then some loft space on the third floor, as well as some open balcony area here on the south end. And these were conceptual images that were submitted showing the townhouse groupings. And then this is the R4 multifamily building, and this is unchanged from the preliminary submittal as well. So these are the same plans. So it's the ground floor parking garage. See elevator lobby there on the left side, stairwell on the east. And then the floor plan, really a combination of a couple 2-bedroom units and then some studios as well. And this is the same floor plan on all the levels. And that's just a conceptual of what this building would look like. And then a conceptual from the southeast looking northwest. So the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the final subdivision plat, final PD at their meeting April 28th of this year and recommended approval to City Council. Staff has reviewed the final plat and final PD for conformance with city state code requirements, found both to be in conformance, and staff recommends that the council approve University Gateway on 6 final PUD as well as the final plat. I'd certainly be able to try to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Michael? As council remembers, this was a public hearing we had September 8th of 2020, as he had said earlier. Brandy.
There was a mention that there was just a slight adjustment to parcels 1 through 20 since the original PUD was approved. Could you comment on what those changes are?
They were just adjusting the floor plan to fit on the parcels themselves. And so there was also a water line, I believe, a private one that ran at the exterior, so pretty much between the lots and the property line. And they were just adjusting that. They ended up putting that into an easement instead of having that outside the property lines. But really, it was just to, trying to adjust the floor plans with the lot sizes, and that was the slight adjustment. But that was all portrayed in the preliminary approvals that they were still, working on those lot sizes, and they're just a slight modification to the lot sizes. They're virtually the same size.
Okay.
Maureen.
Could you address the issue of I know you have in the past, and could you do it again to refresh me, on the issues of the parking lots that used to belong to the university and then now they belong to this development instead? The concern there is that neighborhood is already pretty condensed parking, and so there's a concern about where those cars are going to go that had previously been parked in those 2 lots, and is that a concern for the city?
Well, it's my understanding that the applicant has and he's certainly here to answer that question, has a long-term lease for those parking lots. They were previously associated with the university. In the interim, I believe the applicant's been leasing parking spaces to people that would like to park there, and that could be residents of the area, it could be University of Idaho students, not exactly sure the demographic that's in those lots. But yeah, I mean, they would be exclusively dedicated for parking for this development, not necessarily U of I or any other residents within that area.
If I recall the public hearing that we had September 8th, that was exactly what was said. Was it the owner of this owns those lots, and he was going to use them for the parking for all these condos.
Right.
So it's, the university doesn't own it, they were just whoever, they might have been leased or whatever from the individual, but he was going to use them for his folks that were going to be renting these, or buying these places. It's kind of how I understood it.
So I guess the question is, we don't know what, all the cars that are currently parking there that are in the lease spaces will go dispersed to wherever, somewhere else, that we'll have to find spaces somewhere else, but that's.
Well, maybe people are parking there too that shouldn't be parking there, just parking there, so.
Right.
Gina.
I like this the first time, and I like it now, again. And given that there's nobody running down the path here, I would like to make a motion that we approve the University Gateway on 6th final PUD and final plat.
Seconded.
Further discussion from anybody on council? We've got a motion by Gina and a second by Art to approve the University Gateway on the 6th final PUD and the final plat. I will start to roll with Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Nay.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
Okay. 5-4, 1 opposed. Okay, thank you, Michael. We will move on now back to item number 8, which is the Gateway Development Agreement. And we have Bill Belknap doing that for us this evening, I guess.
Good evening.
You don't look like Todd, so I'm putting B.
No,
Glad you're with us this evening,
I
Bill.
could have the evening off and I would cover this for him. So this is just the development agreement, and as we have discussed in the past, generally the city can't sign the final plat until a monumentation agreement is in place that ensures the interior monuments of the subdivision will be placed, and that we have a development agreement in place that ensures the developer will complete all necessary public improvements associated with the final plat. So this, before you this evening, the monumentation agreement was approved on consent this evening, so this is the development agreement. It generally covers the standard language that dictates the developer is responsible for all necessary public improvements associated with the project. For this particular project, that's primarily going to be focusing on public utility construction for water and sewer main, storm main improvements for the project. It generally provides a duration of time for 12 months to complete the improvements from when they start. It provides the opportunity, if the developer wishes to secure a building permit prior to completion of all the public improvements, they can provide a security for those improvements to ensure their completion. It covers language such as the warranty period, which is 1 year from completion of the public improvements. They have to correct any deficiencies that may arise, as well as the Parkland Dedication. For this particular project that's happening, it was a fairly small dedication requirement of about 9,780 square feet, and that is being satisfied by the construction of a pathway through a portion of the project, which was reviewed, approved by the Parks and Recreation Commission. And then it covers phasing of the project. I think there are 4 specific phases identified, or 5 in the project, and that's included in attachment A as well. So with that, it's really our fairly standard development agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Questions for Bill? Okay, Art.
Well, I would move approval of the development agreement with J&S Holding LLC for Gateway on 6th.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Maureen to approve the development agreement with J&S Holding LLC for Gateway on 6th.
I do have a question.
Okay.
And it's probably related more to the last topic, but is there any update from, I thought there at some point there was going to be some discussion with ITD possibly to address traffic issues coming out of this development. Is that something that we're going to be hearing about at some point in the future?
There's no discussion to my knowledge on that point.
Okay.
So, can I?
Sandra.
I don't know if this is an answer or not, because I do remember bringing that up. And I think Mike presented a traffic study to us a couple different times. And once might have been at planning and zoning. I think he did it once when we were here. I don't know if that is what you were thinking.
I guess I'm just wondering, just in general, it doesn't affect this vote, but is that something that concern about traffic coming out of here, in the future, is there a time at which that is going to be addressed by this body?
Not likely by this body. I mean,
Okay.
if there was a concern about traffic impacts or mitigation that the council wished to require, that really needed to be addressed at the preliminary plat stage.
Okay.
Okay, we all good? Ann, did you have a question?
Yeah, so, and this is probably also potentially not the appropriate place to talk about it, but, so I responded to an email today, and I recognize they're not the same development, but from somebody who's still affected by identity, who was asking about parking permits, because we've tried different solutions there for a development that didn't have a lot of parking that has impacted residential streets. I'm curious what it would take to implement something like that, because I could see down the road there being ongoing parking problems here and us wanting to explore something similar.
So the question is related to this project or the
Yeah,
other project?
I mean, in the event that this does create a parking pinch similar to the conversation I'm having with a citizen in a different part of town. I guess I'm just wondering what the process for exploring that as a solution would be. I know that's a kind of a big wonky question.
No, it's okay. So traditionally, if a resident wishes to request a modification to on-street parking or a traffic control device, there's a process and an application for them to submit that request to the city. That's reviewed by a committee that includes the streets and engineering divisions that review the request and determine whether they think it's appropriate to make the requested change or not. They would render that decision then to the requestor. If they are dissatisfied, they do have the opportunity to bring that forward to the council for the council's consideration.
Is downtown our only example of that in Moscow?
For an on-street permit parkings. So we don't do on-street, we only do permits in the off-street parking lots downtown. We have limitations. Some streets have limitations for no overnight parking. Others have a 3-hour limit zone. But the only place that we actually do permit is within the Jackson Street parking lots, both north and south, to my knowledge. The only other example would be on the University of Idaho campus that the University of Idaho manages. There are sections of public streets in Old Greek Row where we have an agreement that they are allowed to manage the parking on street in that area. And so they have, last I recall, they had a purple permit system for Greek members. They could obtain permits for on-street parking, or they can also obtain permits in the west Kibi Dome parking lot for overflow areas. But that's the only place in town that we have any on-street permit parking programs in place, and it's managed by the University of Idaho.
Thanks.
Okay. We have a motion by Art and a second by Maureen to approve the development agreement with J&S Holding LLC for Gateway on 6. I will start to roll with Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Ann.
Nay.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, 5-1 on that as well. Okay, with that, we will move, thank you very much, Bill. We'll move on to item number 10, which is the BBC LLC Development Participation Request, and Bill Belknap has that one as well this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this is an item that the council has seen a couple times, I think at council and committee. But for those who may not be familiar, I thought I'd provide a little bit of background. Shortly after the city's receipt of the Hamilton bequest for youth recreation facilities and programs, the city formed a group called the Hamilton Dream Team, really to try to help identify needs within the community. Additional athletic play fields were one of the high priorities. We had the swimming pool, obviously, as well as the Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center, but then outdoor athletic play fields became that next highest priority within the community. The city then sought to identify a site and purchased a 44-acre property in the southwest portion of the city, specifically for the development play fields in 2002. The city spent then, after that, about 9 years working on the development of a master plan for the development of that property. And one of the components, and why we're talking about this evening, is one of the components of that master plan was the planned extension of Conestoga Street south across the playfield property to serve both the playfields and future development to the south. And there was a fair amount of discussion at that point in time about when the city was to develop the property, should it hold itself to the same standard that we do for subdivisions, which is to extend utilities and access to adjacent properties to the south. And that went to the city's Transportation Commission, which ultimately recommended the city should hold itself to that standard, and then got incorporated into the city's master plan for the development of the property. So the property in question here is highlighted in red. It looks a lot like Idaho on its edge here. So this is Palouse River Drive on the north edge, and the property has a fair amount of frontage on Palouse River Drive. And then Conestoga comes in directly opposite here to the north. And then we have Sunnyside that's a little bit to the east from there. Again, a 44-acre property. Really the only current use of the property is concentrated north of the river here. So this is the South Fork of the Palouse River. It doesn't bisect the property. And so we do have the cyclocross track that's been developed on the north side of the river. There's a small temporary parking lot just to the west of that. But the property south of the river, which really was the focus of the playfield development, has just been continued to be farmed since the city acquired the property. The master plan that was developed at that time included a number of play fields. There were 2 Babe Ruth baseball fields, 2 Cal Ripken fields, 3 soccer, football, and lacrosse multi-use fields. There was riparian areas along the south fork of the river, pathways that were envisioned along the north side of the river as well as what they call the passive park area. That's really where the cyclocross track is. And then there were 2 parking lots. I think the one on the north here had 50 parking stalls, and then the one here located on the east side of the property had about 260 parking spaces in that parking lot.
So can I just ask you something about
Yeah.
that? Because I was getting a little hung up on this drawing with that parking lot, thinking that's going to be the access and that's going to be the parking, and was told this was a very old conceptual design, so that is not necessarily what would be planned for
This is the
off of that
most,
access road.
this is the most recent one that was developed.
Okay.
So that this is Conestoga that was shown here on the east, providing access here across to the parking lots, and then again continuing to the property.
Okay, Bill,
to the
where's the parking lot so you can show on that map for her?
So
Well, it's
the one
right-
right here.
yeah.
Right there.
So then everyone going in on the shared access road to this development to the south would be bypassing this parking lot that everyone accessing the ball fields is going in and out of before and after ball games.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. If there's another version of that master plan, I'd like to see it. But that's the only one that I've seen of the project that was developed at the time. There were a number of elements that the council evaluated related to the cost of construction of the ball fields. The first was, that Conestoga Street extension. The cost of that improvement was estimated at $1.8 million at that time. There was also improvements of West Palouse River Drive, the south half of the street that is adjacent to the park property, so that would essentially be the city's frontage improvement obligations along that frontage. The cost of that was estimated at $527,000 at that point in time. Segment 3 was actually making full improvements to Palouse River Drive from the property east to Highway 95 South Main. That was just under $1 million at that point in time. And then the city council desired to explore extension of wastewater effluent to the play fields for use for irrigation. That was estimated at $1.6 million, and again, was an item that potentially could be funded by the sewer fund because that was addressing some of our effluent and temperature standard issues related to our MPDS permit. The development of the ball fields themselves was estimated about $2.5 million at that time, and then the passive park components features on the north side of the river was $210,000 there. So total project cost was $7.6 million, or just about $7.7 million for the project. In 2011, we had the recession that hit in 2008 and 9. Actually began in 2007, but really affected our community about a year later. And in the throes of that, the city council ultimately decided the project was cost prohibitive for the city to undertake at that time. The council directed staff to, again, reinitiate negotiations with the Moscow School District to explore partnership for the development of the Joseph Street property. We had started down that path with the first softball field that got developed on that property, and then that development kind of ceased. Once the school district began looking at other potential future uses of the property, that discussion, we were able to get that restarted, and the city and the school district partnered together to develop what's now the Moscow School District Community Playfields project, which was completed in 2016. Generally, that was viewed as being maybe not the full answer for the long-term needs of the community, and the city has since retained the Palouse River Drive property for future playfield development. On April 8th of this year, the city received a request from BBC LLC asking the city to financially participate in the Conestoga Street extension and the accompanying bridge construction. The total cost that they were estimating for the roadway bridge and attendant utilities at today's cost was just about $2.3 million. The letter really did not specify specifically what level of financial support, but in discussions and conversations with representatives after receipt of the letter, they indicated they were hoping to share the cost with the city at 50% participation. Now, the improvements involve both water main extensions, water hydrants, sanitary sewer mains, manholes, stormwater improvements. So the 50% contribution, not inclusive of any contingency amount, would be about $47,000 for the sewer fund, $90,000 for the water fund, and $941,000 for a street fund for roadway improvements. As I mentioned before, the city did have a discussion and indicated that it felt it had the obligation to extend Conestoga at the time in the past. And the roadway extension and, of course, utilities are essential for the future development of the city's playfield property and does create a benefit to the city's property as well. So we have examined available capital funding. There are a number of large projects we have upcoming: the 3rd Street LSIP, 6th Street Bridge Replacement, Mountain View Project. Actually, all of those actually were scheduled for construction in 2021. It looks like they will be delayed until 2022. The 3rd Street LSIP, which the LSIP is a local highway safety improvement project, and the Mountain View project are being administered by the local Highway Technical Assistance Council. They were not able to get those projects out to bid in a right time for construction this season, so they'll be delayed. And we're just finalizing the final grant award on the 6th Street Bridge project. Again, that'll probably push us too late in the season to start the bridge project this year, so we'll push that till 2022. With some reallocation of about $526,000 within the capital accumulation, the city would be able to fund all planned projects within FY21, which again, those will be in 2022, and continue to fund the anticipated future projects on the city's capital improvement plan as it relates to roadway improvements as well. Staff would recommend that the city condition any contribution upon the requirement that BBC LLC improve West Palouse River Drive from the intersection of Conestoga Street, I should say. I always call it Drive because that's the section that my parents live on, but apparently when it goes north-south, it's Conestoga Street, east to US 95. Those improvements would include widening of Palouse River Drive to a minimum of 34 feet in width, with curbing a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway to the minor arterial standard. Again, that will help ensure that the roadway can accommodate anticipated future vehicular traffic that will result from both private development that happen in that area as well as the city's potential future development of the playfield property. If the council wishes to participate, we'd recommend that contribution be limited to no more than 50% of the actual cost of construction, not to exceed $1,078,210, and would not be dispersed until completion acceptance of the Conestoga Extension Bridge construction and improvements to West Palouse River Drive. And so this was the comment at the time this was initially presented, which was if the council wishes to proceed with the participation, staff would prepare a development agreement for the council's consideration. So as I mentioned, this was first reviewed by the Public Works Finance Committee on April 26th. At that point in time, the request was reviewed by the committee and forwarded to the full council for consideration. It was then considered by the full council on May 8th, and council directed staff to prepare an agreement and pursue negotiation of an affordable housing component within the future development of the property south of the playfield property. It then came back to Public Works Finance Committee on May 10th, and again, staff had prepared a memorandum of agreement addressing the roadway contribution, and BBC LLC and the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust reported on progress towards developing a option for affordable housing in the project that appeared to be taking the form of a purchase option and charitable donation agreement between the two parties for the development of affordable housing in the future private development to the south of the property. So that's back now before the council for your consideration. So the committee just forwarded on to the full council for the council's consideration. Representatives of BBC LLC and the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust are here to report to you on their progress on the affordable housing components. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that council might have or turn it over to them to give their presentation.
Questions for Bill? Brandy?
Within the text of the agreement, it says to construct the drive to the southerly border of the city-owned property, but the map shows that road extending south beyond that. Are we only going to that southerly border?
Correct.
Okay.
So that was that was one component of the prior master plan, was there was some discussion of having a playfield extend beyond the property boundary. At this point in time, all we'd be doing would be extending the property to the city's property's southerly boundary. Nothing beyond that point. At least with respect to any city contribution that would be involved.
Any other questions for Bill? Well, let's hear from BBC. And good evening, Richie.
Good evening. Rich Beebe with representing BBC LLC. I guess I just wanted to update you on our conversation with Nils with Moscow Affordable Housing Trust. We continue to try and work through some sort of an agreement. We have something in writing that I think we're really close to getting something signed, but at this point he really is unable, and he can probably speak to you more about that, but they have their next scheduled meeting is on June 15th, and I think at that point we hope to have everything worked out, so they will be able to sign something at that point. So.
Nils, would you like to come up and speak about that, please?
Mayor, City Council, thanks for having me here. Yeah, we have an interesting proposal from BBC LLC. I took it to the executive committee of the Housing Trust, which is the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And they were interested in it and asked for two things. One, that I do the due diligence to review the proposal in greater detail, and two, that we put it on their next regularly scheduled meeting, which is June 15. I'm doing sort of three parts of the due diligence. I'm talking to my realtor about it from a standpoint of valuation of the proposal, and I'm talking to our lawyer about it from the standpoint of what it says is in the document. And I'm working with the developer's civil engineer to understand the potential of the site. What I would like to arrive at, in terms of a recommendation to my board, would be that it is credible that we would be able to proceed and make use of this offer. That is, an offer that we can't use may look nice, but it doesn't actually produce any housing ever. It's a long way off. It's multiple years ahead. So is it credible from a topography standpoint, from a budget standpoint, from a legal standpoint? Is it credible that we could do this? That's the question I'm trying to answer.
Okay. Questions for Nils?
So are any of those questions that would need to be answered by the city in some way, or those are things that you're?
That's my problem.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Nils, we're glad that that's your problem, not ours. I'll just share that with us right here. Other questions for Nils?
I just have a statement. I'm kind of, I'm laughing that you have the problem, but I'm happy that you have it, because that really was the spirit of what we were asking for in our discussions, was just making sure that something like that is actually possible in the development. So I appreciate the efforts. Drink more coffee. You'll stay up later. You know, you can figure that problem out faster that way.
Well, I agree. It's a good problem to have.
Right.
Other questions? Or even for Rich Beebe from BB&C?
So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly, like that then BBC LLC, you have kind of proposed something, and now it's just up to you to, with your board, determine if you will accept that proposal.
Correct. So it's a purchase option agreement. Happens in real estate where you get an option to buy something. In this case, we get this option for no cost. Oftentimes you buy a purchase option. But the question is, would we credibly execute the option?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the price isn't somehow likely to be workable, if the legal description of it is not workable, I mean, there are various ways that it could fall apart. Mm-hmm. And it could still fall apart. But my goal, my problem that Gina's laughing about, is to try to be as sure as I can be today that 3 or 4 years from now I will actually execute the option because it will make great sense.
So then this is a really tough question, probably for Mr. Beebe, which is, so if that didn't work out, and I know that you've made it very clear that you've recognized that this is a need in Moscow and a goal, and that seems to be a shared goal. I mean, do you think you'll have other ideas of just other ways to make it happen? I know that's a very hard question. Or would that just be the end of it if it doesn't work out for Moscow Affordable Housing Trust?
Richie's right behind you too, and he also is.
I know.
I guess yes, we've had lots of conversations, and I guess we have worked through the process, and we kind of landed on what we thought was mutually agreeable. So I guess if ultimately this was something we decided wasn't going to work, I think it would be like, okay, where do we go from here? How do we find something that will work? And I think I've said that to Nils over and over. We just need to figure out something that works for everyone. So,
okay.
Thank you, Richie. Well,
So I think we've drifted a little far off of the original premise of our discussion tonight, which is the memorandum of agreement for the improvement of West Palouse River Drive and building a bridge. So I think the developer and Moscow Affordable Housing Trust have worked together to develop themselves a mutually satisfactory agreement, or will continue to do so. So I'd like to get on and just make a motion to approve that memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I should have asked.
hang on just a second, Maureen. I want to write that down. Okay, Maureen?
I'm sorry, Mr. Beebe, could you come back up here for a second? So I think I said this at the Public Works meeting, but I find how you separate and divide all the issues here to be somewhat problematic, because we have the road and we have annexation and we've got improvements. And what I want the record to be really clear about is that what we're deciding now is about a road, but actually you don't really care about that road if you're not going to get it for your property. Do you know what I mean? I guess if you don't get annexed in, are you still going to need that road? And I don't even answer it. I just wanted to articulate that we're not making a decision tonight about annexation.
No,
And that what we're making.
about that. We're not.
No, I know, but I just want the record to say that, thank you, Bill. I just want to be clear that what we're not deciding today is annexation, and what we're deciding is this road and the bridge.
understood.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate all your work on this thing and the development, and I've looked at all that, but I just wanted to make it clear that we have two different things.
Yes, indeed. Ann?
Yeah, I have a comment. I just wanted to thank both parties for your willingness to engage in the discussion. I really appreciate that, and I think that is very much in line with our intentions in having so many discussions. And thank you for coming to all the meetings for those. It does feel like a high price tag for something that's not on the capital improvement plan, but I also appreciate all of the improvements that are going to happen on Palouse River Drive. I think especially we have a lot of developments that go in that don't include sidewalks, that don't include bike lanes or anything to that effect, and I think it's going to be a really great improvement to that road, which I used to work over there and found that it had a surprisingly high amount of pedestrian and other traffic. So I am excited about that part, and I support what has come forward tonight.
Okay, good. Another
I have another, just like, is there in any reality possibility that the city doesn't move ahead with a ball field in the future? Do something with that property, or gets rid of that property?
There are no restrictions on the property that it must be used for ball fields.
Or I guess I mean that the city disposes of the property. Can you think of any reasons to predict why that would happen in the future?
Yeah, somebody gives us about $20 million.
I think
That one.
certainly as staff, we would not advocate for that. Parkland is hard to acquire. Parkland of this size and of this topography is hard to acquire. And the price that we paid in 2002 is substantially less than what it would be today. If we look in the long view, 50 years from now, and Schweitzer's campus is there, and there's potentially other development around, this will be a great community facility for the council, for the city to have. So as staff, we wouldn't advocate it for. Certainly, the council can make any decision it may in the future, and it's hard to know if the future council could decide they wish to do that. But staff certainly would not advocate for that.
There's something else in addition to that, with that land that the city owns. You know, some point in time, we're going to need another fire station down the south end of town as things grow and stuff. And that could be a decade away or 15 years away. That may be a prime spot for it as well. And of course, there's going to be more needs for some kind of park stuff down there, Randy, whether it be a ball field or something else. Who knows? That may be. Yeah, Sandra, do you have something?
Yeah, just real quick. You know, I think one of the really important things that has happened here, even though there's been a little bit of maybe not as smooth a landing as everyone anticipated, but one, I've had, you know, folks write in saying, oh, it's a bridge to nowhere. Well, it's not. And I think, like we said, several years down the road, regardless of whether we use it for ball fields or just a lovely area to go or going back and forth, that bridge is going to go somewhere. So I think it's important that we have gotten to a point where we don't look back and go, God, we wasted a chance to save $1 million, right? It's tough to spend $1 million, but I like to look at it as saving. But the other part of it is I really like the process we went through, and I know it was extra work, Rich, and Nils. Boy, we're putting you through extra work too, and Bill and Gary, city staff. But it was important to us that we do make sure that people remember that two of the things that are really important to us are fighting climate change and finding ways to have better development. And some people didn't think this was the right way to go about it, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But we needed to test the waters a little bit and find a way to start making things work and to open up communications with our developers. And I think that's one great thing that did happen here. And so I'm absolutely in favor of this, but I am absolutely happy about the process we took to get here also, regardless of the extra strife it took.
Okay, well, with that being said, does anybody else have comments before I call for the vote? Okay, and then, of course, Art made the motion, Gene made the second for the draft the memorandum of agreement and recommend approval. I will start with Maureen.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina.
Aye.
You've got it, folks, so thank you very much. And now we have one more thing. Thank you all. Thank you for hanging in there with us all evening. I can't remind you, Rick. Okay, with that, we will go to item number 11, which is consideration of the mayor and city council's salary adjustments, which is pretty minimal, really. So, anyway, in order. So, Gary, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, just let me cue up my half-hour PowerPoint here.
Oh, awesome.
Everybody ready for this?
Have time yet?
Actually, this happens every 2 years. By code, I do not have a PowerPoint. If a lawyer can't explain this without visual aids. Every 2 years, the law allows the mayor and council salaries to be adjusted. It's in the election year. The reason is they don't want council voting themselves a salary raise without being answerable to the voters and anybody who might want to file for election because of the exorbitant salaries that our elected officials make. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek because, as you can see, the increase is just a factor of the consumer price index, which was 2.1% for 2019 and 2.4% for 2020, raising the mayor's salary from $2,028.50 per month to the princely sum of $2,119.78 a month. The council from $703.28 per month to $734.93 a month. So again, this is a process that's set out by Idaho Code and Moscow City Code. So it adjusts by the consumer price index and it's put before you. It must be done by ordinance because it is contained in the city code. So that's what's before you today.
Okay, questions for Gary from anybody?
You know, I never get tired of hearing you say how well paid we are, and the sarcasm, I enjoy that a lot. We had a question, Sandra and I, did we not, in the admin committee about, you know, the foregoing the salary, and your answer to that was that, you know, we are free to donate it back to something. should we?
There was a time, many years ago, when the country was going through some not very good financial times, and council members talked about foregoing the amount, and it was felt because you didn't want the salary to get so low that it didn't mean anything. So it was suggested at that time, we had several council members do it, who would then take their salary and then donate it back to the city, which is a wash, of course, because it's tax deductible when you donate it to a municipal corporation. But that's the way that it's been handled by councilors in the past.
I know that for some of us during the COVID pandemic too, that one past pandemic, that we all kind of invested in local business, trying to, spend our money that way. So there are multiple ways to reinvest those dollars, the mammoth pile that we get.
It's been my experience that the most enjoyable thing to watch is to see who makes the motion.
There may be some more questions on this, Gary, so we don't rush the thing, and we're going to give everybody a chance to speak that wants to speak on this ordinance.
Nobody's speaking, so I'll jump in
Okay, all
and
right.
make a motion to approve the ordinance making salary adjustments for mayor and city council effective January 1st, 2022, under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
I'll second you.
Geez, I thought we weren't going to have a second for a minute there. I was going to say, how about that? We have to discuss this some more. Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Brandy to approve the ordinance making the salary adjustments for the mayor and the city council effective January 1, 2022, under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary. And I will start with you, Maureen.
Aye.
Ann?
If any of my colleagues would like to donate to the Anzabala COVID-19 Therapy Fund, they're welcome to do so. Aye.
Okay. Art?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Brandy?
Aye.
And Gina?
Aye.
Well, we finally came to the end of our stuff tonight, folks, and I would recommend the council to skip reports. Would you guys like to have another half an hour and chat about other things?
Do it on your own time.
You need to read
Quarter to
the
7.
ordinance.
Yeah, Mayor, you got to read the ordinance, right?
Yes.
At least the title?
Ordinance.
Not the whole thing, just the title.
Oh, I'm going to read the whole thing. Ordinance number 2021-05. An ordinance.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Plat.
Now, which one would you like it to be?
It's on first.
21-05? So I'm correct in what I said? Okay. So I got to read this, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 8 of the Moscow City Code, providing for the increases in salaries of the city's elected officials, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law. We all good on that? And so now, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sine die.
Everybody in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, we are done at 10:24, folks. Thank you very much, everybody.